You give me the cue. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are here at our unusual July finance meeting for the Cincinnati School Board. We're here largely because of all the financial decisions that have been made already and are about to still be made. My name is Eve Fulton. I'm fortunate enough to be chair of Finance Committee, and we're going to go around the horn here and have everybody introduce themselves. Make sure you've got the microphone available to you. And when Member Crossett comes in, we'll make sure he gets reintroduced as well. So let's start with Madam President, if we could.
Good morning, Emily with ASME Local 232.
All right, I'm Ken Dell from Facilities, work in the HVAC department and also help with all facilities requests and needs.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Nan Haga, State and Federal Programs Manager.
Hi, Shanna Schneider, Supervisor of Accountability and Utility Management and Facilities.
Good morning, Sierra Badge, Assistant Superintendent, currently assisting with facilities.
Good morning, Kendra Mack, board member.
Morning, Michael Guspin, Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer.
Liz Martin, Assistant Treasurer and Controller.
Good morning, Lauren Haverkosh, Chief Audit Executive.
Good morning, the board's administrative assistant.
Bob?
Good morning, Rob Wilson, technician, and if you'd like to speak during the speaking of the public session at the end of the meeting, please click the hand icon. We'll invite you over, ask your name and association of the district, and we'll invite you to speak at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Well, we'll get started. We're going to elevate in the agenda of facilities, so that we're going to at least start with number one now as we wait for Member Cross to come. Treasurer, if you'll get us started.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll go through the monthly financial reports. Mr. Ashley is taking some reserve time off, so
Good.
go quickly. Go to the next slide, Rob. So I would just say as we start here, all of these numbers are preliminary. They're not officially closed. The fiscal year yet, they're closed and anticipate any material changes. But just know the numbers may change slightly. As well as there's a summary slide, but we'll go through it in detail. So let's go ahead and skip over the cash investment. You can see as of the end of June, we had $128 million across all funds and cash investments. And we continue to have our debt, our sinking fund and our debt there. And we previously had some money in the Star Bio account. Those are kind of high interest savings account. So there's between that and our operating cash flow to kind of try to keep those two in sync so we get as much interest as possible, but also have pay all of our obligations. And the next slide, you can see general funds about $400 million at the end of the year. Debt service has a healthy balance, most of which is in fund that we can't really touch. So you'll also see that all of the other funds are positive. That is by law. So state law requires that.
Not breaking the law.
State law requires at the end of the year, every fund has a positive balance or zero positive balance. So board members know, obviously, we do have to make advances into several funds. At the end of the year, generally our state and federal grants, because we're paid on a reimbursement model. So we put the money out ahead of time, and then we submit requests to be reimbursed. So there's usually a little bit of money we have to put into those funds. Significantly less this year, so shout out to Mr. Ashley and Ms. Hager and the grants team for keeping up on getting their reimbursement to the states and not having to advance as much money.
Could you kind of talk a little bit more about that? Could you say something like significantly less audience, or if anybody's listening or say, well, wait a minute, we don't want anything less, but indeed in that case we do. If you could tell us why.
This is one of the strong financial management. So
Okay.
Traditionally, we advance out between $9 and $10 million out to other funds. Of course, again, it's reimbursing. We did a really good job this year of doing multiple cash requests. Usually doing monthly. We got within a year, we do only kind of every 2 weeks. This year, we only had to advance out about $2 million.
That's great.
So it's huge. It's about a quarter of what we normally do. Now,
Big difference.
now in Esther times, it was even more, obviously, but again, you were waiting on some fairly significant reimbursements. Facilities folks know a lot of that. There were some big construction projects back then, but yeah, this was a really good change this year. I think it's something we can sustain, just keeping ourselves closer to where we need to be.
Mr. Crossett?
Yeah, I think in the budget, we had a plan for $500,000 to increase our minimum balance. Is that reflected here?
Yeah, we have not increased our minimum balance.
We have not.
Yeah, this year, as we'll get into, our cash balance from year over year went down.
Okay, thank you.
And we can talk about why as we get in there, but,
All right.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
all right, keep going, Rob. We'll talk just general fund. Yeah, here you go. Mr. Cross, with the big question, our general fund cash balance, end of the year is about $16 million less than we started the year. So, couple of reasons we talked about, obviously transportation, you know, we knew about that one. Also our revenue, I think, was a little less than we'd expected. And we'll talk about why that is, as we get into the next set of slides. So if we keep going, you can see our cash balance continues to be low, you know, year over year. I will say our encumbrances are also lower this year, so we did a better job of paying
good.
invoices. That was good. I mean, and you know, Director Levens, you know, she has a whole team who tries to reduce our carrier encumbrances year over year. They are definitely making progress, but that's down. So you have to really look at both of those numbers together to kind of see, you know, how much we have and what's obligated. So it was a long year, and we spent a lot of money on a lot of things that had to happen, and you know, trying to catch up on the revenue. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Crossett?
It says 43 million. I thought that we had a goal of something like 39 million or something in the 30s somewhere, correct?
Yeah, we usually, like, our net is unencumbered, right? So you would take 43 minus 12, it gets us at like 30 or so.
I see.
Yeah.
So the goal is the net of those two numbers.
It's kind of your unencumbered free cash. Now, and what happens is, and we talked about this, I think, at the board meeting, out of that 12.7, there will be lots of things that never get paid. You know, there are these contracts that stay open where as they work through it, you just don't spend all the money. You know,
So this is just the normal annual management that happens every year. Well, I guess I'm on.
yeah, this is all pretty normal stuff.
And this 12.7 is, I think, represents 1.5%, 2% of the total budget.
Yeah, it's pretty low. It's about
And so
2%.
that normal activity of 1.5%, 2% of the budget that you're managing cash with, that happens every year. I mean, that's an annual normal management activity, I would imagine, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the only big takeaway from this, I mean, we're getting better at not carrying over stuff. The big takeaway from this is our cash balance does continue to go down.
Yeah.
This is sort of the effect of, you know, property tax reform, not having new revenue, having to absorb all of the expenses that we have to absorb.
Right, okay, thank you.
Continue.
Next slide just shows it on a line graph. You can see where we're at. We will now jump next month. So this is where we start getting the second half property tax settlements. We got our first tax advance this week for about 12 million. That's the little one, and then they grow from there. But we'll end up getting about $150 million over the next month and a half. All right, so if you want to see kind of where things planned out, if you go another slide. Oh,
Wait a minute.
Member Map?
Just, and you may have said it, and I think you said it at previous meetings, but can you explain the drop for this year in January? The decline there?
yeah, I mean, that's as low as we've been. Yeah, I remember that. You know, previous years, we've borrowed money at that point. You know, we've done what's called a tax anticipation note. January is always our lowest. We avoided that. You can see, like, if you look at kind of the kind of the line there that has a big bump. So we did not borrow money there. Also, you know, we had some personnel expenses hit around that time, but that is our trough. Every year, and you can see, you know, as soon as you hit February, you start getting the tax payments, and it bounces back. So our big drivers are when we get property tax payments. So we get both advances, which advances come in, you know, ahead of the settlement, and then you get your settlement payment. For whatever reason, this year, the way advances have been done, and I think it's just maybe how people are paying. You know, the first couple are pretty small, and then you get a really significant one. They've traditionally, years in the past, have been more level. So I actually think it's improvement in the auditor's office. They've standardized the dates, like it's every 2 weeks, which I think is better for us, predictability, than, okay, I think it'll be next week, you know, but because of that, we also have to adjust to that, you know, because if you do 4 every 2 weeks, it's different than doing 2 at kind of interim spots, if that makes sense.
Does that just reflect the change of auditors eventually? Have they changed that process or what?
Yeah, I
Did we
think
ask them to do that, or
we,
is it?
we did not ask them. It is countywide for everybody.
Right.
But I think, yeah, change of auditors, change of auditor staff.
Okay.
I mean, I personally like the change
Yes, absolutely.
because it's very clear when the payments will be, how many there'll be. So I think it's better, but it's also,
I can tell you, and you know, the county government,
Yeah.
the independent elected executive folks can, with the change of administration, overnight, you can change what you're doing. It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It's tremendous discretion in those seats.
I will say the auditor's office, Auditor Moran, have been a great partner to us.
Absolutely.
In everything we've done, anytime we have a question, they're there. But yeah, I think to answer Ms. Mapp's question, like traditionally in prior years, I think we would have borrowed money there, done a tax anticipation note to keep it coming there, but we were actively managing it. We knew where we could get to, and we thought instead of you know doing a short-term borrowing and paying the interest and that stuff, that we would make it through.
It's a little close to the edge there, Mr. Treasurer.
This
Good call.
Yeah, this is our life. We are
Okay.
we are close to the edge.
Right.
And
Well, we know that the assistant treasurer carries her liquid without a lid.
she does that too.
So it's a dangerous crew over there. We gotta watch them.
Yeah, I mean there is a way for us to be less close to the edge,
Well, no,
which I believe we'll be talking about in the
in
next.
just a moment. Go ahead. Sorry.
Just looking at revenue, if you go ahead, Rob, you can see, you know, revenue versus budget, you know, property taxes were a little below where we'd expected. State aid actually came in a little above, so that's an interesting thing. You know, operating revenue, a little above, and then other financial sources a little below. So we're really close. We're within, you know, 2.5 million of what we thought our budget was gonna be, but
That's pretty good.
you know, percentage wise, as Mr. Crossett likes to do
Like that
percentages,
percentage
right?
stuff.
Mr. Crossett likes to know we were at what, 99.6% of what we thought. Sometimes with big numbers, though, percentages look a little odd. So we did good. I think really the property tax stuff, a lot of that was kind of some board revision stuff. Honestly, the utility companies really challenged their values. You know, and that's a chunk we don't really think about a lot, you know, because it's kind of at a state level, but that I think depressed our property tax collections a bit.
And has our ability to challenge been reduced? Do I recall that?
It has been made significantly more difficult, and it continued to make. If you remember a couple of years ago, they passed a law that we had to challenge every one individually, and the board had to pass a resolution for each of those versus just doing it. And the last set of legislations, I think, actually now there's a court ruling that just came out recently about that.
that I think also decreases our ability to challenge property
Yeah.
tax values. So it's about who has standing in those sort of matters. All right,
Okay.
if you flip to revenue, Rob, you can see where we were. As no surprise to anyone, most of our expenses are salaries and benefits. Continues the way it is. I think our purchase services went up a bit. I think we can, some of that was the transportation things that we had to pay. But, everything that we do gets more expensive when you live in an inflationary environment. All of the businesses that we work with also need to make their profit. And so it's a very difficult time. So that's the high level slides. If there are any other questions.
We'll move on to preschool if there's no other questions.
I believe we should just, so
Skip over, is there anything,
there's no new data for preschool in June.
okay? Cool.
Obviously, the preschoolers are doing their summer thing. I think the only slide that's really updated is the preschool expansion slide. You can kind of see the budget to actuals. Budget to actuals there. So we got a little more revenue than we budgeted. Spent a little more. That's actually all part of the plan. There is some extra money from the original years of the levy that's in cash reserve. So, it's right on plan. Our biggest change, as you can see there, is our tuition assistance continues to be less than we budget. I think we are in some ways a victim of our own success.
Okay,
Director Brooks and her team have been really good about getting additional funding sources.
dollars
And
they can
if you remember, it's last dollar in for us. So the preschool expansion money for us comes after title, Head Start, preschool disability funding, and the big one for us right now is the early childhood grant from the state of Ohio and the expansion of that. And that you can see that has depressed our tuition assistance numbers the entire year. But it's not as much a function of these kids aren't getting preschool. It's that the state is coming in and providing resources. So then the local resources don't have to happen. Which, if that worked the same way for all of school funding, we would be having a much different conversation today.
When you say local resources, you mean the non-CPS?
The
Preschools.
preschool expansion levy dollars, are local. But if the state is putting in, funding several hundred seats, we use that money first before we use the levy money. Sure.
too, that's one of the things, even if there isn't a change of administration, at least there's been some major dialogue about increasing the amount of dollars for preschool in the state of Ohio. So that it has a positive impact on us,
Yes.
who, we obviously lead the state in preschool by the generosity of the taxpayers in Cincinnati and that program, but that would be great if there's some more responsibility assumed by the state with more dollars, then that's less of a burden on our local taxpayers.
It's nice when we're aligned to,
Be nice.
anytime what you're doing is aligned to what the state wants to do, it puts you in a good spot.
Which reminds me, several months ago, we listened to the governor and we had made a list of his priorities for his particular budget and his year in advance. I hope we go back and look at that list of priorities, because maybe there is some more money in things that he cared about. Some of it was stuff that they're aligning themselves to us. There was some healthcare pieces there, there's some preschool pieces and career tech. So I hope we have made our efforts known to try to get any priority that he's emphasized that helps us. The ones that don't help us, we can just wink and blink at those. Try to ignore as best we can, because they'll find us. We don't need to find them for that. But I would hope that we look at that as we, try to make our even implementation yet of the budget that we have just passed.
Yeah. Excellent.
Any questions? Member Matt?
So, for the actual that was spent, is that specifically for the preschoolers that are within, our district? Or does this also represent those that are not a part of, CPS?
Yeah, so the best way to kind of answer, looking at the slide kind of we're looking at. So you see preschool tuition assistance, that line is very specifically for CPS students. The line right below it, the payments to United Way, that is the money that, and United Way is kind of the pass-through agency, but that is the money that then.
Trusted entity.
Trusted entity, yes. That is the money that is then used by the Preschool Promise folks for all of their programmings, most of which is tuition assistance. I mean, they have admin costs, they have some other programs around quality and training and stuff, but most of their money goes to preschool assistance, it goes to tuition assistance as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Does that help? Okay. Cool. Turn it over to Nan to talk state and federal grants, and then maybe we'll loop back to facilities.
Yes.
All right, and I don't generally, talk much about preschool because it's not such a focused grant, but I will just like to put out there that team does an amazing job. What they do is so complex. When a student comes in and they identify the optimal funding source for the child, it's just crazy complicated getting the teachers funded correctly and in maximizing how we spend those funds, federal first and state. And I mean, they really do work hard to preserve our levy dollars and spend every other dollar available. And there's a lot of regulations and they just really work hard to keep that all working.
With the, at some point, we're going to have a leadership change with that group. Is that process well documented?
I feel like it is. There's a lot of agencies involved and there's, a lot of people managing all the different moving parts because, each grant is so complex. So I do feel like they'll be fine moving forward. And to be honest, the rules and the processes change as the grants change and, as the federal government changes. So everybody's in a constant state of learning and adapting, honestly.
When you say that group, are you picking up the
Preschool group, yeah, that navigates how to optimize the revenue per student.
Our preschool team, yeah.
Yeah.
That's largely because Brooks is
Director
going
Brooks is-
part-time.
yeah,
Brooks,
she's
one of the part-time.
Kind of transitioning.
She's slowly
out.
transitioning.
Right, so eventually there'll be a new leader there, and I just want to be sure that if it's complex, that we maintain that, because it's obviously a significant benefit.
I mean, hopefully we'll have a good transition plan that the next person is qualified, but I do believe the staff,
Does that make
We need
sense?
their-
Yeah, and I was just trying to
Sorry,
identify what,
was a
when you
little-
said that group.
I was
like,
a little
what are you talking
nebulous
about?
in my question, sorry.
She's like,
and of course,
Two meetings ago, or
let's not
last
panic
meeting,
anybody.
when Ms. Brooks was here, she was shocked to even know that board member Crossett knew that she was going to part-time. So it was, she'll be glad to know that you're still focused on that. But I will say, and I always, any chance I get to compliment Vera Brooks, she invented Roberts Academy. She invented welcoming centers. She invented how CPS welcomed our new great numbers of Hispanic kids and refugee kids. I mean, she's been at the front line of all that. And very frankly, this preschool thing has been one of the political hot potatoes of trying to build a coalition, keep everybody happy, be able to deliver on stuff that the taxpayers are holding us accountable regarding preschool. And indeed, in a way, having to also deal with private sector providers and our providers. So yes, it's an important question to make sure that if that departure occurs, that we do have people in place. But that's true of everything, but particularly in this instance. So good point.
Very complex regulatory environment that they have to deal with. All right, so we'll move on to the next slide. So here is our visual progression of our grant spending this year. As you can see, we are still quite a bit ahead of previous years. and above our target as we try to, again, just have a more timely and effective spend out of the grants. And of course, the individual details are always available through the link right there at the individual grant level. Our final amount for the year was about a little bit over 65 million. This is, remember, just the public side. So this doesn't represent the funds transferred over to non-public schools. And the next slide is kind of the same information in a slightly different format. So our goal was 68%. Remember, we do set our annual goal at 85% because we want to allow for the carryover. Obviously, if it's a grant that doesn't have carryover, our goal is higher because we want to recoup 100% of those funds, but on average, we shoot for 85% to allow a little bit of carryover. We're well above that goal. This month, all of our new year applications were due, so we spent most of our time trying to get that data together. You know, obviously with the budget challenges, the same issues we're facing the grants as we tried to figure out the optimal budget. So we do have substantially approved dates for all of our funds to be able to spend as of July 1st. We did also have another, they call it a virtual on-site review. So the idea is that they go into as much detail as an on-site review, but they don't come down and actually, you know, tour the schools for the Stronger Connections grant. So that was a Title IV grant that came out. It was a one-time grant that's wrapping up this year. We had about $1 million left over the last 3 years, so we were found to be compliant on that. And so that this is the last year of those funds being available.
Member Matt?
So thank you for highlighting the number of grants that we do have and where we are in terms of, you know, spending the dollars for those grants. Can you speak to how we are like allocating out those dollars within our district? Like, how do you determine, or how does your department work with the schools to identify how to utilize those funds? Is it opportunity for most of the grants to be, you know, distributed through the entire district, or there's areas where it's just designated or specific schools?
Yeah.
Like, how do you make that determination?
If you want to go to the next slide, I think it'd be easier to explain that a little bit. So it is very grant specific. So for example, some of these grants, like the delinquent grant, that is 100% focused on the Juvenile Detention Center students. And so, you know, those decisions are made, you know, by really the budget managers and senior leadership based on, you know, the supplemental needs of those kids. For the neglected grant, you know, those Title I funds go to our foster homes. And so those site administrators primarily, you know, make those decisions of what's going to help those kids with support from our own in-house manager. Probably the most complex is Title I-A, because that's such a huge grant. And so, you know, it's truly intended to be a school-based grant. And so we first set aside those funds for school principals to make decisions in alignment with their one plan and their one needs assessment. So I think this year about 17 million was given directly to the principals to, you know, allocate to their students as they saw fit, you know, and obviously in conjunction with meeting with their LSDMC, their ILT, and they all have an impact on those decisions. The rest of that is directed towards district-wide initiatives. And so we kind of have a historical pattern of what we spend that on. For example, you know, over 3 million goes to preschool. And, you know, almost $1 million goes to the homeless program. And so there's some programs that depend on those funds to, you know, for their existence, honestly. But the priorities do shift. Project Connect has received more over the years as their, you know, their need has increased dramatically. As our funds are shrinking tighter and tighter, those decisions are becoming more challenging. This year was probably the most challenging, I would say, because everybody wants more money, and they're trying to find ways to cover things that general fund won't cover anymore. So it really is just tied to the superintendent's priorities, you know, the strategic plan priorities, and how to try to just get the most out of that money within the parameters of what's allowable, obviously within the grant. But each one really has a targeted purpose and intent.
And thank you for highlighting the priorities in the strategic planning process, because that was definitely a point of conversation with Bellwether and for the Community Advisory Committee. And so it will be interesting to see what those you know, how the priorities evolve and how those funds and those resources will be allocated appropriately to support those initiatives.
And if you look at, you know, the spend, again, several of these grants are up around 90% spent, you know, including carryover. We're way higher than we've ever been on what we're spending. So again, next year, when we head into budgeting, and even this year to some extent, like what's left over is shrinking. So these decisions are gonna be even more critical and strategic next year, because even though our initial allocation is pretty steady, we're no longer having that huge influx of, you know, leftover funds to bolster all these programs. So if you wanna, I guess, go to the next slide.
Please, go ahead.
On this slide, the total allocation column has 40 million. And then on the next slide, you have FY '26 initial. It's also about 40 million. Are those dollars basically the same, just allocated differently? Is that?
Well, for the difference for the next slide is I added in Idea B, because I think that is, we don't really talk about it as much in general, because that money gets spent every year pretty much on mandates
But
and things.
essentially, that's the same dollars, just
Yeah.
being spent. It's the same 40 million, essentially.
Right, well, not really, that would match the initial column on this first spreadsheet of the initial amount, and then as you see in the carryover and adjustments column, we had $10 million this year of carryover and adjustments. Next year, we might only be down to, you know, 3 or 4 million of carryover and adjustments, because we're effectively spending, and we have had findings on excess carryover and underspending, so that's what we should be doing. But to your question, it is gonna create, you know, difficult questions about really what are our priorities, because we really are gonna have to decide, you know, what is most important out of Title I, what is most important out of Title IV. And I don't know if Mike wants to add to that, but.
I mean, that, I know that might create an extra burden, but that might be an interesting chart to see how, at a high level, how the money gets spent by school. That might be an interesting, just from a, maybe,
Yeah,
are we
is-
applying the resources where the needs are, kind of thing?
Which we do have, if you go back one more up, sorry. So I do have like the Title I school budgets attached. That will show how much of the 17 million each individual school gets and how they spend it. Overall, they were very effective on their spending, and they've also been doing a much better job on, you know, not leaving their money on the table, because, you know, they don't get in direct carryover. If they don't spend it in the current year, it goes back into the pot. But we, you know, we could easily pull, you know, by department or whatever, what the budgets are.
Thank you.
A couple questions from that, based upon, and it's good news, big news, that we are spending in the year or the fiscal year that we get the money. We were not doing that, and we kind of learned that a couple of years ago in here in this room. And so that's important, and that's good news. But I wonder if indeed, since we will have less carryover, and then there'll be less dollars, grant dollars, I wonder how much we are able to continue the quasi decentralization of the grants, school by school. If there's gonna be fewer dollars, I wonder if that's something that the administration can be thinking about, as to whether or not that practice of actually sending, as you said, the money to the schools, to the principals for the ILTs and the LSDMCs, if there's less resources, it's possible that the central administration may want more of a control over the priorities, especially as they may speak to the strategic plan rather than necessarily how the schools have been doing things. I mean, that's just for y'all smart folks to be talking about. That would be good. I'm very interested if indeed we do have this levy. You mentioned the non-public grants and the dollars that go to non-public schools from the grants. It would be good to start emphasizing how much money that is, not just the number of grants, because I think to pass a levy, if indeed that's what we're going to try to do, the non-CPS schools need to know that they are, and the people that have their kids go to those schools, they're dependent upon us. And so to vote against us is to vote against yourself. And it's not just transportation, it's all of our wonderful specialized teachers and intervention specialists that we send, and the psychs that we send, and whatever it's really, I can tell you, after almost 20 years of this, the public does not understand the role that the public schools are playing in the non-public schools. And it's not just about vouchers, it's day in and day out, they are dependent upon us, and they do not know that.
It's a
They think those
significant
are their
amount.
teachers, they think those are, that's their money, and it's quite interesting.
I did, if you can go back to the next slide, forward. Let's see, what slide is this? Number 20, yeah. I did want to point out that we do still have over
Yeah.
$2 million, almost $2.4 million encumbered in federal grants. And, we talked a little bit about that for general fund. We have about 6 weeks left to get those contracts and purchase orders paid out. That is a
I'll raise my
significant
hand, you can
activity.
send some my way.
Yeah, I mean, for budget managers, that's
All the
really
administrators
important.
watching,
That's right.
Yeah.
There's
all-
still a little bit of money, folks,
and all the vendors watching, please send your invoices.
Yeah,
right away.
I mean, if those things don't pay out in time for our final expenditures report, they get shifted to general fund. So just a little bit of a warning
Please.
that people, need to really focus on that, get their receiving done, get their invoices in.
That might require a memo or somebody or
Yeah,
whatever.
we work on it, but it's really up to the departments and the principals to do that. So it's always an important piece of everybody doing their part
Excellent
to meet our
point.
deadlines.
Takes a village to.
Yeah.
takes
And
a
then the
village.
last slide, I presented this last meeting with our total allocation because we
Yes.
didn't have the non-public amounts broken out yet until we got our applications complete. So this is basically the same slide, but I have reduced it to compare the public part of it because that's, more relevant for our budgeting and planning. So pretty much the same grants comparing last year, this year, but focusing on the amount remaining with the public schools for our schools and administrators. And again, you can see it's fairly flat. We did get more in delinquent. That was due to two things: more kids in JDC and also a slight change in the way we were reporting those kids. And so we did get quite a bit more there. Everything else is fairly flat. Again, the non-competitive and expanding opportunities, those went up significantly, but not as much as the number of schools. So, we went from 4 schools to 15, but we didn't get 4 times as much money. We got like 1.5 times as much money. So on a per school basis, it went down. But overall, luckily they didn't go down, but we're basically pretty much just flat as far as our allocations.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Before we move to budget, shall we do our facilities as we were going to? And our folks, as they all saw, Mr. Crossett joined us about 5 minutes into the meeting, and I didn't want to stop the treasurer from talking, but here we are.
Ms.
Full
Dunn
house.
joined us as well.
Oh, my goodness, yes. He's done. Introduce yourself, Jim, and introduce yourself, Michelle. That would be great.
Yep, Jim Crossett, board member.
Michelle Dunn with Cincinnati Federation of Teachers. Thank you.
Oh, I love big paper.
Joy, pass, is it just one page? I repass it. Is it 2 pages?
I'll mix it up.
You know it.
That would have made it easy for me.
Did you get the other one?
I don't know. This is what you gave me.
I'm a hard copy girl. Let me ask this, so do we each have 3 things or what?
You should have 2. So you should have 2. You should have a list by school, and then you should have a list by category.
Okay,
You have both, yep. And I'll explain it in just a second, okay? Just breaks it down by school, so we want to know.
just have 3 things, so I don't know what's going on.
All right, well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you guys for inviting facilities to be here this morning, and thanks for our team for being here, so thank you so much. we were tasked in the last few weeks to bring the budget committee and just updating quotes and just the overall wellness of our building. So we were tasked with, hey, what's going on with the buildings as far as deferred maintenance? I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. We're talking about deferred maintenance through facilities. So we're presenting today on deferred maintenance on all of our sites, all of the buildings that we own. And we were tasked with making sure that we update quotes with, inflation and things that are out there with our buildings and the age of chillers, the HVAC systems, to roofs, to painting on campus, classrooms. So we looked at the whole 9 yards for facilities, and our team has been busy the last few weeks updating quotes and numbers to get a better sense of where we are as a district so we can move forward. So that's what we're presenting. I just want to make sure that you guys understand it is deferred maintenance, stuff that we have been deferring that we really need to address and handle. Okay? So not vision, not like saying, hey, we want to do this with this building. This is just maintenance.
You said stay in your lane.
Right,
No, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
right.
Okay? I've been learning a lot working with facilities these last few weeks. It is a truly from top to bottom, it is a phenomenal group of folks that come in, day out, and they want the best for our facilities. But do we have to make sure that we have the right resources for them as well to move our buildings back to our CPS standard? Okay, next slide, please. And team, please jump in. If I'm saying anything, please jump in. Okay, so just our method behind this report, just to let you guys know, we work with vendors, we work with our team. We have a team of experts as well that specialize in each area, roofing to plumbing to electricians. So we worked with them to see what the needs were on each site. They've been visiting sites and completing a needs assessment for each site. We also look at our work order system. We look at what we have fixed year over year, and we tag that if that's a problem. For an example, chillers. I'll have Mr. Kendall just talk about briefly how we identify those things.
Yes, so speaking on chillers for the HVAC systems throughout the district, the way that we assess to identify how we prioritize replacing the chillers is based off of our facilities master plans list on terms of the day that it was installed, the recommended date on terms of replacement as well. So we look at the life expectancy based off of reports from ASHRAE, and then also inspection and field reports off on terms of, you name it, from A to Z on terms of schools, going through and doing a thorough inspection, checking the compressors, checking electrical components, checking to ensure that we're able to continue to provide comfort to all our students and staff. So we do a strong assessment throughout the summer. This is the summer where we start in June, July, and August, where we can actually take equipment offline to go through and do a full inspection on every single chiller throughout this district. We also utilize our contractors and our internal team as well to ensure that we can meet the deadline of August 1st for school readiness to ensure for a clean, safe, comfortable environment for our students and staff as they return. So we have inspection reports for every single piece of equipment in the district.
Okay. Feel free to stop us at any time if you have questions.
We will.
Again, these are cost estimates. These are not quoted pricing. So these are our estimates that you're going to see on these sheets that I gave you today of what we think the cost will be to replace units and painting and things of that nature for the deferred maintenance. Next slide, please. So you can see our previous plan, what has been presented to you as board members in previous years. Currently, as of today, we are estimating in deferred maintenance 166 million, which is around 25 million less than last year. You'll say, hey, what happened? What's the difference there? We took out some key projects that we as this team did not feel were needed at this time. Just to be good stewards of our tax-based dollars, we're going to them asking for additional funds. There are things that we can do on our end to save money. One, just to highlight a couple, one is keys. It was decided to rekey all of our keys throughout the district. We didn't feel that was needed. We have security systems. We have updated security methods, and we have second shift security personnel. So if anyone keeps a key, we change security codes. So if anyone was to key into our building, we were able to alert folks. And so we didn't feel that we needed to rekey our whole district. So we saved a few $1 million there. Also, with our roofing, last year it was presented that 35 buildings were going to be replaced with roofing. We got that down to 22. Some buildings that were on the list for new roofs, we have never had any issues with those roofs, and they're still under warranty. So we felt that we didn't need to touch any buildings that we weren't seeing any issues and are still under warranty. So we'll keep moving that forward. Oh, for the roofs? What was that exact number?
35 schools down to 22
22.
for the new plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Crossan?
Keep your eye on the roofs. If the roof goes, the whole building goes.
That is correct. Yes, sir.
I have a couple things to ask.
Can I add to that comment?
please,
Sorry to
please.
interrupt.
Of
We do have Tinmans on staff here at CPS, part of our crew. I think it's 4 or 5, about 5? 5 Tinmans. They specialize in roofing. They go out and they do needs assessments and they let us know what's going on. Example, this over the summer, we had an issue over at Euler. And I had to email our treasurer and tell him we had an emergency issue and we had to get the roof taken care of right away. So we do have expertise on staff. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let me ask this about, you said it's 125 million and it's a certain amount of less this year. When you weren't referring to a year, you were referring to the report is 125 million less or is total.
Well, just 25.
Just 25,
Okay,
not
so
125.
But it was
Wishful
what?
thinking there.
It was, if you look on the screen, so last summer, it was presented, we needed 191 million in
So
deferred
it's
maintenance.
25 million less than that, but
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
not just this year, it's the whole.
It's the whole 5-year
report.
plan. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I have a question, a couple things on the roof piece, too. I know that there is a problem with the Bramble roof particularly, and that's been appearing even on the budget passes that have been going through. There's an Aiken reference to a driveway, there's some other turf things. Is that included as something that has to be fixed now? Because that part of the building is unusable?
Yes, ma'am. So on that report, when we get to the building, we'll use Bramble as an example.
Okay.
And I can show you what we have on sheets.
That would be great. And then adding a little bit here on the categories on cameras and security. I know when we had met with city council the last time, there was some talk about expanding the camera perspective, if you will, to include not just where we are, but include a little bit more of the campus as it meets the sidewalk and the street. And that the police, I think, felt that would be helpful to them, not just for pedestrian safety, but enforcement and being able to follow up. So if you'll kind of keep that in mind as you move forward, that would be great.
And then Mr. Kendall, he oversees the security team with cameras.
So yes, that is correct. And we have been collaborating with CPD as well in terms of communicating what that looks like moving forward with innovative technology when it comes to our camera systems throughout the district and how they can also communicate with each other, right? So there's
That'd be
been,
great.
yes, ma'am.
If we can widen the perspective, that would be helpful.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think, for them and us and our children and teenagers. Thank you. Okay.
I'll say I'm kind of jealous with the new camera system that they do have. As a former principal, this new stuff's AI now, so you can type in certain key phrases and it'll pull up the footage. And I remember spending hours looking. Okay, so next slide, please. So estimates, again, I just want to make sure everyone understands these are estimates. These are not actual quotes that we went out and got from vendors. These are estimates from our folks in the facilities department. Additional repairs. So we always look at, as a facilities group, is if the repair can happen while kids and teachers are in the building. So when we price things out and we look over a 5-year period, we say, do we have to shut down the building to make this repair? Is it feasible to happen during the school year? So when you're looking at this report, we'll break it down for you in just a second, is we broke it down with what's feasible, what we can get done in the academic school year, and then what needs to happen during summer months for our buildings, for the work. Yep, yeah, absolutely.
Hi. So you've seen this plan several times before with Mr. Burkhart. So that is one of the key points in the new presentation today, where we added the duration of how long something would take, so we could sit with the team and decide what can we actually get done within the fiscal year. So we have several subcategories, and then we also listed what's critical, and all critical items are safety related. So that's the big takeaway from this newer version report, is that we now have subcategories for financial aspects of what we could potentially do with whatever money we see in the future. So I just wanted to add that. So practical is what we determine that could be completed within the fiscal year that it's listed. So anything that says practical, that's what that means. Critical, obviously, safety issues are the priority. And then anything with the life expectancy is outdated, along with maintenance issues. We have to keep repairing it and Band-Aiding it. So I just wanted to chime in there that that's the big difference on how this report's broken down further. And then on
Very
the,
helpful.
I'm sorry, and also on the school side, we color coded by year, by fiscal year that it's on the plan, and anything that's red is considered critical. So I just wanted to add that, sorry.
No, that's good.
Oh, that's helpful.
You're
Thank
actually
you.
segue into the next slide, please. And that's you.
Oh, back to me. So again, we have subcategories. And when you look at by fiscal year, you have FY28 comprehensive, that 49 million. That's everything listed in FY29, or I'm sorry, FY28, that we deemed as necessary as deferred maintenance for that particular year. Under the practical piece, the team got together and we said, yeah, we could actually get 45 million of that accomplished if the funds were available. And out of that, the critical repairs is 28 million. So we did that across the board. So again, your grand total, what is deferred for that year is at the very top. What we can accomplish during that fiscal year is practical, and the most critical repairs by year are at the bottom. Do you have any questions on that?
Mr. Crossett?
What's happening in FY '27?
Oh, well, we don't have funding to do, we started this with FY '28. This is 28 to 32. So we are aware that there was some funds that were requested in the budget and approved. We haven't been given the official go-ahead, but from what I understand, pieces of those were to go towards the Bramble
So, yes.
construction.
I was just curious, the Bramble roof isn't on any of these charts.
It is in structural, yeah, under
Yeah,
the
yeah.
structural.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we put it on there
Yeah.
if by
It
chance
needs
we
more than
can't.
just a roof, doesn't it?
Right, it's a
Yeah.
structural, the whole cafeteria
it.
area,
Okay.
so that is under the structural piece in your pamphlet. So we do have it on this sheet. If by chance whatever funding came through in
We can
27,
advance these.
exactly,
I got it.
yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Just one question about that Bramble roof, or that Bramble auditorium. It's a really cool space. And I suspect that there was a pretty high-end architect who's hired to do that. And I don't know if we could find who that is, but that might enable some grant applications to think about for that space. It's a very unique auditorium, mid-century, modern, classic kind of thing. And just FYI.
And I'll add the answer to two parts of your question. For this plan, this was thinking in the future, if we receive additional dollars from a levy or our treasurer would bring in additional money, this is how we would space it out over the 5 years.
Let me ask that, in fiscal 27, what monies are available for facilities?
Looking at their budget, obviously there's the $3 million for the FMP.
Which we have to, by law.
I think they've already pretty much got all that mapped out, encumbered, and have been pushing POs for, I think. we're
Okay.
there. There was a line item though for,
About 6 things.
yes.
It was 1.5.
About 1.5
Yep,
1.6.
yep, or 1.6, yep.
But it was a list of things, Bramble was one, and
Cheviot, Fairview, Aiken.
Aiken,
Fairview.
Hughes.
Yeah, there were a list of like,
And then there was, part of that list too, were two different turf things, if I recall. Did those get cut?
Turf did not make it.
Okay.
That
So-
was funded, I think, a little bit. The repairs for that piece of turf that was in the budget, I think was
Taken
funded
care of.
through the, Care for Kids, or, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Kids Future.
Sorry, yes.
But those were temporary fixes. I just want to make sure that that's clear. Kids Future was able to get us some donated dollars, and they've done some temporary fixes currently right now until we can generate some new dollars.
Two, if it, was it, Withrow?
Withrow, I believe they're starting Clark, and it's one other
It's
site.
Clark.
It may be Woodward too that they're working on with the Bengals.
No question about it, no question about it.
And they're on this report.
yeah, we're Band-Aid bits and pieces.
But on 27, there was Bramble, there was the $850,000 or something regarding Aiken's driveway.
Yes, but we scaled it back.
So it's less
We-
expensive than that.
Well, we scaled it back for right now because with the Aiken driveway, it started caving in the rear of the parking lot. So we really need to see if it's going to go where they're out there this year. They marked it over the summer, and they need to see if it's going to go anymore before they start the construction
I'm gonna
process.
tell you, it's
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
go more.
Yep.
The person that walks their dog over there, let me tell you, it's worse this week than it was last week. It's a real problem. But it's not, it would be wrong to spend too much money on it because nobody quite knows how the rest of that campus is gonna be used, especially the hole where the football field used to be. And I know there's some great vision of somehow being able to get down into that hole. But that's one, so I think it's wise not to spend a fortune, but just from a safety standpoint, if you're driving your car too close to the edge, it's a little difficult. Remember, Matt?
Yeah, so I hear the conversation about Bramble, and I'm hearing that is a recommendation for 27 potentially.
We had it in the budget for this coming school year. I have to check with the treasurer to see if if it made it through.
It's in the budget.
Yep.
So Bramble potentially could be done this school year.
Okay, so I guess my concern with that though is wanting to ensure that I see that it's labeled in terms of what's critical, what's practical. I'm not certain about what the actual concerns are with Bramble's roof, so I want to highlight that. But I don't want to, I want to make sure that, again, that we are having that level of discernment and equitably making the decisions on our schools, that we are making sure that we're providing facilities repairs too, because we recognize that they're, and I believe that you all do a great job and do what you can, but I want to caution us to make sure that we are identifying those schools that may have gone without repairs for several years. And I know that this is a new school that we have established, and I think that it can send the wrong messaging as well in the event that these schools have had several concerns, and that if that continues to be prolonged, I would be very concerned about that.
Can I add to that? So initially, when we were renovating Bramble, when it was repurchased a couple of years ago, we were gonna put a roof on over the cafeteria section, and there were structural issues. So that whole wing is shut down. So I believe that they have to use carts for their lunchroom in the gym, isn't that?
Yes, that is correct. The kids
Yeah,
are
so
eating
they
in the gym.
can't use the cafeteria at all. That's more of the issue as having to eat in the gym, and then they have to keep rolling the food service stuff back and forth. So the main critical piece is because that whole section had to be shut off for safety reasons because of that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? One quick moment on chillers. Chillers often cost us legal fees.
Yes.
At Clark, especially, we spent about $1.5 million arguing with the neighbors because our chillers were making too much noise. So as you proceed with chillers, do a sound test, because we really don't like to pay legal fees for chillers. But of course, that only happens in certain neighborhoods, if you get my drift.
Yes, ma'am.
So pay particular attention to those chillers that are close to folks, a Cannes kind of a place where it's close to neighbors. But yeah, that was a maddening expense. And not the only place that it happened, but when you have to spend $1.5 million on legal fees to fight the neighbors because the chillers are making too much noise, that's $1.5 million that didn't go towards educating children. So
Yes, ma'am.
watch out.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you had nothing to do with that. That precedes you.
Yes, ma'am, but we will
Watch
move
the
forward in the
sound.
right direction. Yes, ma'am.
Unbelievable.
Just one
Remember
final
that.
thought, thank you. So I am curious to know, in the areas in which we can lean in, it may not be as enticing, but I'm wondering where we can like garner, potential partnerships or leverage partnerships, whether it is dealing with the, repairs of a playground or the classroom, like painting the schools. I know that we have done some of those things, such as partnering with Habitat for Humanity over at Reese Price. So I'm just wondering if there's more opportunity in room and space to do that, that can help offset some of the costs that's associated with those, maybe not the high level, more intense needs, but, some of those areas to help beautify the school.
Absolutely. Wooden Hills is an example. This summer, they're getting a makeover on their campus, total makeover through the Cincinnati Reds Foundation. And some other folks. Yes, ma'am. Yep.
So we can continue to lean into those.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, they did a wonderful job at Douglas 2 years ago, and they've done a wonderful job at Ethel Taylor before that, years ago. Right? So, yeah, the Reds are wonderful, but to your point, there are more partners out there that would like to help, be it garden clubs or whatever.
Yep. The other thing too, the city of Cincinnati CRC, they're redoing some of their facility plans, and we have several of our schools that are either connected or on the same site as the CRC. So understanding what they're doing and then partnering with them to enhance that relationship.
And then and even with that partnership, what I liked about Reese Price is I appreciated that there was an opportunity for students in the community to actively engage in that, so it helps with that investment piece, right? And the upkeep of like their community, so we can continue to try to foster those opportunities. I think that would be a huge success.
Yeah, if I could add to that, so this past summer, so of course, I'm in charge of the utilities for the district, so we have an account executive, and we were trying to help this Spencer school, Riverview Spencer, the parent group wanted a little bit of beautification, so I was able to get a grant from Duke. And we did a little bit, on the fence line by the tanker area. We built this garden, and it's gonna look really pretty in a few years once it blooms. But anyhow, Duke has a lot of grants that schools can apply for individually for beautification. There's several different things, so we can't keep that, forget about that, because those are things that we can do as well. And then we also worked with the Community Garden Center as well. So it was, there's a lot of opportunities. And I also wanted to say, Kendall's done a marvelous job along with the security team and Nancy over there. A lot of the cameras that we've replaced thus far, the systems have been grant funded through grants they've gotten through the state of Ohio. So there is a line on there for not the additional camera line, but cameras reduced this time around because in FY '26, Lacano got another grant and they got some more upgrades. So yeah, there's opportunity.
Super. Cross it?
There's been some, just a heads up, there's been some inquiry about the Rawson House space, potentially getting rezoned for playground. So just keep that on your radar, a part of that space. And also what else was I gonna talk about? No, I forgot, I got distracted. But by the way, I live right near Spencer, and I've seen that strip that's been done. It needs some love, but it'll be great.
I actually have a volunteer going out to trim down the actual weeds that are coming out, because eventually
Yeah.
the weeds that come back up, the plants that grow really high are gonna shade off.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
I know what I want to talk about. We have a committee for sustainable greener schools, that's all volunteer by Cynthia Walters of the, what's her group? The Green Umbrella?
Green Umbrella,
And I think that's a group, and I know Mr. Burkhart was kind of helping lead that. And so that's a group, I think, that could potentially, there's a lot of volunteerism for our spaces there. And I think was some plans regarding having many more of our spaces be Ohio Native Prairie, so you don't have to mow it. And I also think it could be, with a certain amount of coordination on our end, I think you could leverage that group to have a volunteer group for every school grounds. I know there's, just because I live in the neighborhood, there's a group from Crossroads Church that does work on the school grounds at Spencer for free. So I just think that might be another avenue for helping us
Absolutely.
save money and look better.
Yeah, the Green Network is one of our largest partnership networks and one of our newest, very frankly. So, yeah, be important to, they have meetings at least quarterly. It might be important, especially with Mr. Burkhart's situation now. Might be important to have somebody from facilities actually show up at that, because he kind of did the administration thing, and superintendent comes occasionally, but he was a fixture in those network meetings.
Right.
Good point. Okay.
All right, we'll keep pushing along. So on this page, you see at the bottom, the comprehensive 5-year plan. Board members, you guys have that printed in front of you, but it is there for folks that are online. And then the second link is by school. And again, you have that printed as well. But if you want to see it electronically, it is on board docs. Okay, next slide, please. So we're just summarizing categories. So I thought it would be helpful just to see it by area for you as a district where money is going and what it would be allocated to for our upgrades over the 5-year plan. Next slide, please. And then these links are, with the blue ones, you can click them, and then it'll show you which sites, which schools, and the amount in the years. So this is interactive, so you can click it. And one thing I will say, we've listed everything that we know of today. It could change. You know how things happen with your own home, right? Things change. So we could add things. So it is a working document. So.
I have a question or comment about the middle schools.
Yes, ma'am.
Now that we have middle schoolers in 6 buildings, and most of those buildings were not made for middle school kids or bodies, and some of those schools don't have the athletic facilities attached to them, properly so. And it's my understanding, although the administration hasn't briefed us, so I may have missed this, but I thought that the state legislature passed an effort that said that our kids have to be outside. I won't say it's an hour a day, but it's something close to that of recreation and athletics or playground time. You might look into that, because very frankly, I'm not altogether sure that all of our facilities necessarily would have the need or would have the capacity to meet that new requirement. So that's something to say. And then definitely finding some way that the middle school folks could have more space outside, whether that's relationships with the rec centers that are next to them, like Ethel Taylor, or even walking across the street over at Hartwell, to have that kind of access. Sailor Park, yeah, that was
Mount Washington.
Mount Washington. And keep in mind, I'm making the assumption that as a person on the Recreation Commission, I'm making the assumption that the campuses where the recreation centers are probably our campuses. Because we predate the recreation center. They're celebrating their 100th birthday, and we're getting ready to celebrate 200 years. So the more we can do with them, like we could overnight expand, this isn't for you all, but it is a facilities question. In their 6-year plan, they could have 9 more areas, 9 more rec centers that could house after-school care. And very frankly, that would extend greatly. And it's a facilities issue, it's not a staffing issue. So be thinking, as you said, Assistant Super, that the recreation plan fits into our plan. And I think Mr. Burkhart, I know I gave him a hard copy of it. I'm sure you can reach out to Director Betts to get the plan. It's something even like up at Aiken and Town Hall across the street. There's a wonderful baseball field there that I can remember back in the 60s and 70s. The Aiken baseball uses and other people do, but there might be room for an actual soccer field or football field there. So it's talking about everybody's facilities and thinking about that, because they're the director, and it's a very new commission, very aggressive commission, very frankly. They want to do lots of things, so I appreciate you mentioning that.
I'll email Mr. Director Betts before I
Please
leave today.
do.
Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so you guys have the plan. This includes our current buildings that we are utilizing now. What's not included, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page so you can know what's not included in this plan. And that is the Hughes Hughes Annex. Renovation costs, up there it says approximately 13 million. That was a few years ago. So I know it's more money now.
And that was to make it a school.
Okay,
If we don't make it a school, does it cost more or cost less? What if you made it an administrative center or something like that?
Sure.
So just be
Yep.
thinking about, that was
Yep.
to make us, I think that was to make it be the Montessori Middle School or
Okay.
something.
High school.
and I just want to say,
Yeah, Montessori High School in the
Yep.
central corridor.
so I just want to say, I walked through the Hughes Annex. We really do need to do something with that building because it's just sitting and it's deteriorating. And you know, if you leave that, it's gonna cost us more. So I walked through it and it's, yeah,
Keep in mind, the only reason we probably still have it is that the people up in Columbus think of it as Hughes. So they think it's occupied.
got it.
When they realize it's not necessarily occupied, I mean, this thing is gonna start all over again this
Okay.
coming year about taking facilities.
Okay.
So be aware of that, but yeah, Hughes, that's it, but it's a wonderful building, it's a wonderful location,
Yeah.
there's parking and what have you, yeah.
Okay. Jacob Center, we have Jacob Center, everybody knows about Jacob Center. Rawson House Phase 1 is completed. And we're actively working with the city to make sure that we can get access to it. They're gonna give us a certificate so we can use it. But Phase 1 means they can use the first floor for meetings. They can't have classrooms in there, but they can use it for meetings. Phase 2, that is the upstairs of the Rawson House. In order to use that, you're talking another around $800,000 to get in code.
55 and
$855.
$2024.
Okay, thank you to be exact. So, in order for us to use that second floor, we have to be in code. There's like some elevator, we have to install elevators, a second exit. But right now, we will be able to use the first floor. We can't use the second floor of Rawson. Okay, and then we are getting our Pleasant Hill Library, at Pleasant Hill, the College Hill Library, we're getting that building back to us. It's on the P Hill campus. So we need to start having those conversations of what we can utilize that space for. It is operational, they're using it, but that space will be given back to us when the library make their move to their new campus on Hamilton Avenue. Okay. This was on our slide from last year. We just kept it on there. A need for a new high school on the west side, and then a need for a service center replacing Iowa Street. Again, that was on the slide deck from last year. We just updated that there. Okay. Next slide, please. Board Member Bowden, you talked about it. We do have it on there for considerations. Evanston Field and Track for our middle school students, Pleasant Hill Athletic Field. We do have a lot of acreage over on that P Hill site. So looking at that, Roselawn outdoor learning areas, and then the Western Hills Woodland area. Are you guys familiar with the West High area?
The Western Hills one, I would even lump that in with safety. You have homeless people living in those woods. It's also being used by us and by the neighborhood as a dump spot. So
Is it what spot?
a dump spot. I mean,
Right
there's,
behind the
Is it
campus.
near the high school?
it's right on
It's
the
right behind
campus.
it.
Oh.
It's
do-
awful.
Used to be
kinda
tennis
getting close to the
courts
city
right there.
park back
I mean,
there.
we had homeless people living in the broadcast booth of the baseball field. And to, you know, it was terrible.
to send the police over there.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the last thing we need,
drug usage was
Uh-huh.
over there.
Yeah.
They cleared it out though, but there's always that opportunity
Yeah.
for them to come back.
deal with that, and I will tell you, another area, the woodland area that's difficult is Leap. There's actually a hunting blind up there, where people go to hunt deer or whatever, up in those woods that are right, I mean, on the campus. That also is true about Aiken. In the Aiken Woods, there we even had employee members in the district that would use the Aiken Woods to hunt in. So that has to stop.
So for the Pleasant Hill athletic field area, I think that definitely would be something nice to consider. As Board Member Bolton talked about, making sure that there's opportunities for our middle school students as well. I also just want to highlight the fact that with all of the land that is around Pleasant Hill, I think it would be helpful to have those outdoor learning spaces, or also kind of like an agricultural focus as well, which could streamline up to the work that is being done at Aiken. So, I mean, I think there's definitely opportunity to grow and build there. So I just wanted to pin that also.
And I'll just add that P Hill hired their teacher for next year that's going to lead that program for their students at P Hill. So super excited, coming from Hartwell.
Circle.
Yep.
And don't forget about the FC Cincinnati collaboration on soccer pitches. We got one at Reese Price, but I know there's more coming.
There's two more, Carson and Mount Airy. That'll be launched at the end of this summer, correct?
That's
Yes.
great.
We will be sending you an invite for the groundbreaking.
And they are beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, very helpful.
This is-
And two, don't forget about pickleball.
Oh, pickleball's, yes.
Because again, we want the best thing you can do for security is to keep the schools being used. And especially where there's visibility. So, and there are people that will pay to have pickleball, as well as the soccer kind of stuff that is happening.
Are
The
you,
other-
are
the
you,
other
are
one-
you playing pickleball?
Yeah, you bet. I'm a champion. Obviously, that's a lie. But
You brought it up.
I know, I know too many people that love it, but there's the brand new place in North College Hill, the restaurant's built around having a pickleball. It's kind of interesting. The other one that may not be up there is, or maybe it is Fairview, the Fairview Coach House. Behind Fairview is a beautiful little coach house that might just fall down. Now, the children do believe that there's a ghost in there, so I whatever the kids are saying, it's okay. They've got a name and everything for it, but it's a beautiful little coach
This
house.
is the behind.
Behind
near
Fairview,
Cairns.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, not the behind Cans,
There's a
behind
little-
Fairview.
There's a little indoor, there's a little soccer.
There's a little soccer
Soccer
thing,
field,
but there's
yeah.
also a coach house.
Who owns that?
That we do, and
So
we haven't done a thing with it.
we do own it. They use it as storage right now. It has a good roof. It has electric.
It could be used for other stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting building.
Okay, can we write it down?
It's a
Okay.
beautiful, and actually the neighbors feel strongly that it's a historic building.
Okay, we'll check the zoning on that for you.
My first year on the board, when we tore down the fence where Fairview
Take those
is
on, it's
now.
not gonna be useful.
So much problem was that we had to leave the gate standing in the middle of nowhere because the neighborhood lost its mind when the wrought iron went down. So symbolically, we left the gate up that goes to nowhere. God bless America and democracy.
Also, just want to note,
Yes, sir.
going back a couple slides, the athletic fields, we worked in collaboration with athletics just to make sure that we included fields that were needed for replacement turfs and things of that nature. So that is on your document. If you click the athletic fields, it will break out what fields across the district.
So Assistant Superintendent Badgett, the things that are not part of the process mean that there's no funding for these things to happen.
Correct. These two.
Okay.
That was gonna be my comment, to say, just to ground us in what Assistant Superintendent Badgett started with. This is not about what the vision is for the future.
right.
Deferred
Deferred maintenance.
maintenance, so let's stay in that
Right.
space of what we need to do to honor those areas.
Yep. And we talked about that.
Let me
Yes,
put
yes,
some
ma'am.
of
We
this
started it that way. Yes, we did.
He stopped by my office,
did.
and I was like, deferred? What- Is that saving money? That's how my mind is.
I know.
Rob, can you hit the next slide? That's it.
Save some.
All right. And that's our presentation for today.
That's great.
You're right. Thank you so much. Real good. Go
I'd
ahead.
like to add just one quick thing for future discussion for finances. On the by school, the one that breaks out each school, we have a column. We're eventually going to put which schools have been used COPS previously, just to have everything consolidated. I'm working with Mr. Ashley, and I know he's on vacation, so eventually that will be put on there, just
Cops
so.
column.
Yes, there's a COPS column right after the school name, and that will be filled out, just for, have everything in one spot for you.
This is very impressive, thank you.
We like it.
Thank you to the team.
Appreciate it. You next? Budget?
Think we're back
Do
to
budget or
budget.
you want to do transportation? Or strategic plan?
Let's just roll through.
That's the
We got-
spirit.
We got about half an hour, let's just roll through.
Let's go.
If-
Well, I don't know anybody's hard stop,
Yeah.
but you notice, I'm not the one, I'm not the
aspirational
one,
over here.
I am not the one asking the most questions. I provide commentary, but I don't ask the questions. Let's keep going, budget.
All right, Rob, sir, can we get back to the original slide deck, slide 23 or so? Boom, thank you, sir. And thank you to our guests as they take their leave of a most exciting budget conversation, so.
I'll make sure she.
Not just the charts.
Yeah.
So, talking budget quickly, so on July 13th, the board approved the budget for this year. We have a couple open items to talk about. Obviously, the biggest one is this 2% district-wide cost reduction, which is how we got the budget to balance. And two other things in there we'll talk about as we kind of go through today, hopefully spend a little time on. If you go to the next slide, Rob. So how do we get our 2% cost reduction? So I would not say it's a 2% cut at this point. I think there's a lot of things out. This is one of the most up in the air budgets I think we've had up until the end. I think that's part of the problem is there are significant grants still in place, kind of listed there, positive school culture. I think they talked about that a lot at the board meeting. There's still the grant superintendent secured for the network stuff. There's additional money expanding opportunities for each child that we weren't. Yes, sir.
I had a question. So these grants that you're talking about now, these are grants that we've secured, but the cash has not arrived? And is that why they haven't been in the budget? Is that correct?
Yeah, like our expanding opportunities for each, I think that one we're good. They gave us the budget thing. We have to figure out how to spend it. I don't think that'll all be a general fund reduction. I think it'll be a combination of new things
The Boost grant is still working through, I've seen enough information, but back and forth to feel comfortable including it here. But, as I told Superintendent even said, like, I'm the least optimistic of the leadership team, and so.
And as you should
And
be.
it should be, and so my mind, when a grant is there, I have a nice little letter expanding exactly how much money we're getting, who's paying it, how we get money back, all those things, that's my standard.
I got it.
Boost,
So-
we're not quite there with. ODEW, like, I think they're just behind on getting an application out and all those things, but, so I feel comfortable putting them up here, but I can't include them in the budget.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. All right, so those are the potential right at the top to help us to take some money off the top. There's over almost $4.5 million there, I think. Then we talk about the traditional adjustments that we do every year. So vacancy savings is one. I budgeted a very conservative number for vacancy savings this year, more conservative than prior years. There's also, as we know, and start of school year, we do the TAC process. There's usually ups and downs. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, the good news is you get more kids, okay, you can get more money from the state. Get less kids, and then you have to adjust the other way. But those happen every year. They're just things we do. I didn't put it in this slide, but we also talked about rollover encumbrances. We don't spend all that money, so we see some recovery there. And then we have our traditional cost containment things we've done multiple years. Stopping non-personnel spending or putting extra layer review in. We've done that the last few years. We did it this year. It did save us a substantial amount of money. We can also talk about compliance only hiring. I think that's the bottom of the list, but that is another way to avoid cost. There are people, I think, there are other grants that our people are looking for that will help offset, but obviously they're not at the point where I'd feel putting them in here, but we have a lot of time now to start working through this process. The biggest problem is the time horizon, more so than time horizon is probably the biggest budget issue. I feel like even at this point, we get to this point, we are a month away from school starting. It is very difficult to make any significant changes at this point, just because people don't have enough time to adjust. And I think this will kind of be the next slide. We talk about longer term solutions. But it's very hard, and I think Liz will say this about transportation. It's very hard to do anything right now that's going to impact the start of school. Like, we need to let school start,
Well,
and
right
then
now,
work through.
the focus has to be making sure that the buses run on time on day one.
100%, like,
Not even finding where the money was or isn't or anything. Right now, it's making sure that the buses are running on time, because we cannot afford what we used to have and we stopped having about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Which was the buses started to actually run on time. That is just not even an option at this point in time. That has to be priority one. Yes, ma'am.
So when you talk about the cost containment activities, how does this align with the then and now? Because my thoughts are the then and nows are, I guess, causing or can cause great challenges with containing and controlling, right? For those
do.
dollars and having that oversight. So what is the kind of the plan and the expectation with that?
They do. All of this, the problem with then and nows is you're spending money I don't know you're spending. And so it's really hard to manage a budget if there's spending happening that we don't know about until the invoice shows up. Yeah, I think we need to, be a little sterner about then and nows. I think it's something I was thinking about, kind of maybe coming back next month to this committee and trying to get your support for pushing back a little harder on folks.
Payroll deduction?
I don't know that I'm quite there yet. People are watching this, they're like, oh boy. Mr. Crossett talked about a change in leadership of preschool, and people are probably panicking, and now he's talking about payroll deductions. But there has to be a level of discipline that prevents these things. I think also,
there really has to be a level of, as we kick off the year, understanding from the people who manage budgets that there's no extra money. And so if you have a cost overrun run in one area, you're going to have to make an offsetting reduction in another area. You know, there's no big district-wide contingency. There's no magic treasurer's money that the treasurer has.
You're saying that within a school budget?
School and central office, both.
Okay.
Both, I think,
Okay,
across.
well, I think that's even as big as payroll deduction in
I was,
its own way.
I was kidding about
Yeah,
that.
he's kidding, of course, but yes,
He's kidding, but not kidding.
that's right.
I mean,
Go ahead.
I think having some incentive, and it might be a negative incentive, unfortunately, but.
Well, for a little while, they had to appear before the board and tell us why they overspent something, or why they continue to have better nows. It's got better for a little while and then got worse again.
It does, it's.
Yes, ma'am.
We
So
fight
I
it,
guess,
yes.
so I agree with you, ensuring that there's more discipline, right? And more understanding around this piece. And then the other aspect of it is, how do we create more of that efficiency so that we're not backlogging, right? Whatever their needs are, because we still want to make sure that they have, I guess, the resources or whatever the actual need is for their schools. So I'm trying to process, and it's not maybe for me to process, but those are the things that come up for me. How do we ensure that there's more control and containment and discipline there, while also still creating an opportunity for resourcing and efficiency so that the schools are not without the things that they need?
Yeah, I think, and we have an opportunity, in a couple weeks, there's the Principal Institute. Liz and I have a session with all the principals to do some expectation setting for next year. That will definitely be a part of what we talk about. Is you know, I mean, one of the things that we've talked about it here a little bit. I mean, one is, you know, having your plan and following your plan, but also this idea of, and we use the phrase braiding funds. And so knowing what you want to accomplish, and then being smart about all the funds you have, you know, whether that's your title dollars or general fund dollars or school supply money that back when we collected fees, your school has stole some money of that, or Fund 19, or some of the, as Ms. Bolton calls them, the dormant funds. You know, there are a lot, and I think finally awareness is starting to kick in to some of these schools that, hey, look, there's money. I mean, just one example, I spent an afternoon with the folks at Roselawn in the spring and really went through, they have quite a few trust funds. Roselawn School is very popular for people putting money in trust funds and their will and stuff, you know, just because of the population they've served traditionally. But had a great meeting with their school team about those funds and, hey, how can you use these to get some things that, you know, they've had some general fund reductions over the course of the last few years where, you know, general fund, we just couldn't afford these things, and they have trust funds, and hey, it's like, let's strategically use those. I think we'll have more and more of those conversations as we go.
Would it be okay for us to suggest that is the kind of thing you ought to be doing for every school? I mean, the Roselawn Condon School, because there was always a special needs group of kids that were always served for, you know, as long as that school's been there, special needs kids, and that continues to be part of the enrollment. It also was a very Jewish community when Roselawn Condon started as well. So you have a lot of, probably some trust funds with Jewish kids and families, just like with Woodward. If you weren't going to Walnut, you were a Jewish kid, you were going to Woodward. So it's possible that a lot of the more traditional schools may have some of that. It isn't just Walnut and SCPA that have, you know, supporters.
I think Winton Hills is a.
Yeah, Winton Hills has a foundation.
Yeah. So yeah, it's yeah. I mean, we've made that part of our quarterly budget meetings with the schools, and we just keep pushing them. And I think it's like, you know, they say it takes like 5 or 6 times for somebody to hear a message before it sinks in. I think it's finally sinking in, and I think, you know, necessity is a mother of invention. I think as people realize there's no more money coming, they start to be more creative.
Cool. Yeah.
On the getting more disciplined for then and nows, is it possible to have a similar meeting that you have with your principals, a similar communication with your vendors? So that vendors understand they can't accept an order if they don't have a PO? I don't know if that's doable or not, or-
I mean, we send out some regular communication. Well, it's part.
I don't know if that would help or not, or if there, or can we attach a fee to their, to reduce what we have to pay them if they've made an order without a PO or
I
something?
mean, we do, it's in our terms and conditions, we do state it. At some point, it's like, hey, we gave you whatever,
Just a-
it's
just
our,
a
at
thought.
some point, it's our liability,
Okay.
if you call up someone and order, whatever, a box of supplies, they're gonna say, we sent you supplies, you need to pay us.
I understand, but just a thought.
Yeah.
Just one final
Sure.
thought around the containment piece. And it is in alignment to the vendors. So I know that with transportation, that was a huge issue when the invoices were coming in. Do we have a team, or will this be incorporated in the new plan, kind of auditing plan of if a vendor has provided a service and they have not submitted their invoice, if on our end, do we send out communication or notification to say, hey, you've provided this service, we're missing your invoice, just to continue to keep, those cost levels controlled, and we're having that way of auditing where we are?
Yeah, we, especially this time, as Nan mentioned, like as we get to closing out purchase orders, we go both directions. So we look at invoices that came in that the school hasn't signed off on, and we say, school, did this happen? And then we go the other direction and we go to vendors, exactly what you said, and say, hey, please send us the final invoice for this, our records show that you did this, or you delivered this, or we bought this. We need your invoice ASAP so we can pay it. So it goes both directions.
And what is the timestamp? Like, do we give them 90 days to submit? Like, how long do we provide in terms of a timeline before we decide this invoice was not submitted during this time, then we're not willing to pay out because it didn't.
And I wanted to address the then and now. One large cause of then and nows is what I, alluded to earlier. If a grant fund expires and we request our final reimbursement and the budget manager or the vendor have not worked together, that becomes a then and now, because we still owe that money, we have the obligation, but the PO can no longer be paid with grant funds. And that's a double whammy to the school, because again, it becomes a then and now, which draws attention to it to issue a new PO, but then it also eats into their current year general fund. So it's taking away services from those kids, due to grant rules from their current year budget. And so, current year kids are losing money to prior activities. We try to work hard to follow up on that stuff within the amount of time that we have. But really, like, as far as just like not paying them because their invoices, like Mike can talk to that, but I mean, pretty much if the work has been done, the service has been provided, the product's been provided, we're obligated to pay it.
Yeah,
Well, I honor
we
that,
haven't went through
but-
that point, no.
And I'll say I honor that, but being in the space of contracting services out, there are several companies that you have a certain amount of time that you submit they'll follow up to say, hey, you've provided this service. I mean, I don't know if it works differently in this space, but I know that there are major corporations that put a timestamp on, and they will say that they're either not obligated to pay, or there's a reduction in how much is paid out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think you're probably looking from, especially from a healthcare lens.
Yeah.
Healthcare lens, there are hard dates. If your claim is not completely adjudicated by this date, it's on you. I mean, my wife works in the field, that's what she does. She does billing for healthcare, and they have, insurance companies and then Medicare and Medicaid have some really hard dates, and like, they don't care, there's no extensions. We have not pushed back. I mean, it's something to talk about. Part of it is I'm kind of excited, in all the kind of reorg, that the purchasing teams come back to the treasurer's office. And so that gives me a chance to work with Director Levens a little more closely than we have. And I know she's got some good ideas in that, but I think we'll be able to kind of, now that we got the budget through, now we can work on kind of rework on the operational stuff. I feel like these last couple months, we just the budget has been all consuming of all things. So I'm excited to see what we can do about in those areas. I like where your thinking's going, and I'm excited to see what we can do in those areas.
Absolutely. And please understand, I want everyone to get you provide a service. I want you to be paid for your work. So I'm not saying that, but again, it does take that discipline on all ends and fronts to make sure that, we're not putting our district and our students at a disadvantage.
Cool.
Budget, keep going.
Yeah, just quickly, I know, you go one more, keep going, Rob. I did want to talk about some longer term suggestions. So one of the things that came out of the budget process, and I want to recognize that many groups of people or individuals sent in recommendations on ways to help, with the budget issues. Those were all definitely read, and I think a lot of them, unfortunately, weren't things that we could turn around quickly. There were a lot of long-term ideas, but we don't want to lose those. We don't want to lose that work, don't want to lose those ideas. So three things that we talked about, and some of this was, I think we talked a little bit at the board meeting, is bringing back the good old in-source outsource committee, which I think had some really good work. I can just think about, bringing nursing back in-house and how we've saved millions of dollars by doing that. So, but we want to expand a little bit past operational roles. We used it for IT roles, we used it for some of those roles, but to look at some of the other things, I think some board members probably have ideas.
PD.
Huh?
PD.
PD, yeah. I mean, that's another one to, how can we use our own staff to PD?
Entirely too much on PD.
Yep. Second idea is looking at commodity contracts, and I think I wanted to use this to talk a little more about this in this group. So we already look at KPIs here. My read of the strategic plan is that work is going to accelerate and probably deepen, which is something that we've all talked about. Even in the reorg plan, we talked about it. But there are also what I'll call commodity contracts that are things that are never going away. They're not things we really dig into the KPIs because they're commodities. I'll use some of my examples, like software licensing. We have a lot of software licensing, Microsoft products, Google, just making sure, we're licensing for the right number of humans and right number of users, making sure we're not paying for features we don't use. I mean, same thing, probably curriculum world too. We make sure we're only paying for the things we use.
Well, this is not necessarily that, but I mean, it's my understanding Norwood schools have just said, forget the screen time, forget the computers.
Yeah.
Let's get pencil and paper.
Let's get back to.
I mean, it's.
There's something to be said for that.
We've spent millions and billions.
Yeah.
And now everybody's like rethinking how has it been useful or not? So, but you keep going.
Keep going. And then the third one is just digging back into some of the revenue generation ideas. I mean, we've heard, that there's ways to get some more revenue out of the student stuff their student services does.
Can we, just as a suggestion from the chair, these three things, can we, I know we have to build facilities and we have to build transportation for sure into whatever we keep doing as a committee. But I do think, considering the number of folks you have usually here internally, I think all three of these you could have some brainstorming on all of these, even and put them all as one topic. I mean, I would hate for there to be these little separate committees sitting someplace else trying to do stuff. Nobody's gonna have time to do that.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna be way too busy this whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's a thought. Go ahead, Jim. No, go ahead.
I've also, the audit committee would be a very big resource for these
That's a
longer-term
good point.
suggestions.
Yeah,
to-
let, they wanna
to get
do
their
more
input and
stuff, let them do
participation.
that.
That's funny. Yeah,
I mean, internal, the world of internal auditing is,
Does that all the time.
Yeah.
isn't always about accuracy, it's also about efficiency.
yeah. Lauren and I had that conversation earlier this week
Perfect.
about is there an opportunity for audit committee to help? You know, because I agree. We're gonna get into a resource crunch as we start to build out strategic plan.
Also, the Innovation Council, I think you sit on
Innovation
that.
Council
That's
there, yeah.
another group that could add value to these longer-term solutions.
And then my final slide about budgets, just to talk about, is process improvements. I think that's probably a longer conversation than we have time for today.
Right.
But just to remind people, Allaview, which is our budget software, is one of the budget reductions. So we're gonna have to come up with a new way of just entering the data. I really want to do something, and maybe we could do this at a board retreat. Talk about positions versus staffing, and spend some time talking about position management. I feel like that is a concept that
What is it?
position management versus staffing, like when we talk about position, we talk about people, and we tend to mix those two concepts as we go through the budget thing. And so it might be a conversation to talk about concept of position budgeting, position management.
Yeah, I agree. I think those ideas have gotten conflated in some of our conversations. A little clarity there would be great.
Just so we're all using the same terminology.
Yep.
I think that's a good idea. I continue to be concerned about the position piece, though, as the overall budget process of using the same kind of equation out of the CFT contract or other contracts. And not really knowing how, and I've said this too, not knowing really how much each school does cost. Because we tend to determine the cost based upon the average pay. It's, all that is creating a false understanding of where the money is really going. So, yeah, I think position versus people, and that, yeah, or how, you know, how many psychs do you really need for 34,000 kids?
Yeah, and I think there's,
Instead of the school by school kind of thing. I don't want to lose that independence that schools have, but I think this top-down budgeting, we have to rethink the whole thing. I know we do for PK6
we
schools.
do.
Because when we did, we spent those 4 or 5 months on school-based budgeting, student-based budgeting. It worked for the little elementary schools, the neighborhood elementary schools, and it worked. It did not work for Montessori, it did not work for high schools, but at least for our 40-some PK6s, student-based budgeting, you know, the state is giving us this much and we're spending this much, or I'd love for y'all to rethink even the process we just went through.
Yeah, I mean, there's some, for sure. Thank you for going to the other feedback bullet there on that one, because that's why I was like, yeah, we need, you know, if you have thoughts, you know, if you have 90 or so bullet points you wanna send in the budget process, I'd be happy to take those and compile
I
those.
think all those are good that you mentioned before.
From those, but yeah, and the budget task force, I think we need to rework that. I 100% appreciate our union partners spending time with us, but we should start it much earlier, you know, and much earlier in the process. I feel like we come to you when things are broken and say, hey, we're stuck, help us out. So let's try to make that a little bit better. So all those things I think are good, but for the sake of time, if we can move to strategic plan, we'll.
Yes, just one final question.
Yes, ma'am.
So do you have alternatives in place for the new budget entry system?
No, yes and no. You know, Jeremy Gallahue did some really good work for central office in creating what we call the budget templates. It's a start. I mean, one of the things we'll do in the next short term is look at what he did, look at how we can improve that, you know, kind of move that process over to our financial tech team. And I'm sure Jeremy will want to be involved too, but, so, I mean, you know, if you don't have a system, you know, your budgeting system really is Excel. But Jeremy's done a good job of being able to roll these things up and subtotal them and a lot of those things. So I don't want to lose that. And I think that's our kind of working place to start. You know, we did, as we went through it, we learned some things just using his sheets, like, you know, like, oh, we should have added these columns, but you know, you're halfway in and it's hard to backfit. So we learned a lot from what we learned, but.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, thinking about like the accuracy of the process,
It will be harder next year for sure. I mean, you know, it was 2+ FTEs worth of expense, and you know, unfortunately, it was one of those, you know, hard decisions we had to. So. All right, strategic plan, financial models. Ms. Bolton, you asked us to kind of dig a little deeper. So start with the slide that that was presented at the board meeting, and the key part of this is, you know, what is the financial model? You know, it's a decision support tool. It's not a budget. It's not a shopping list, right? So it's not in that. So I just want to level set there. It's not built to be a shopping list. We keep going, Rob. You can see we're gonna create 3 financial models. You know, obviously one assumes no new revenue, which is your baseline. Second one assumes that we would have a levy passed, so we would start to have money in fiscal year 28. Third one assumes that we wouldn't get new money until 29, either you know, a second shot at a levy or change in state funding. Really, the funding drives a couple things, and it's really the scale and the pacing, right? So if we decide that the things in the strategic plan are the things the district has to do, you know, and that we're working through priorities to initiatives, that's our thing. If these are the things we have to do, then the question is, how quickly can we do them? And then how quickly can we start them, and how quickly can we spread them? If that makes sense. So if you go one more slide, Rob. So kind of how all this maps together. I don't think this slide's been public yet, but Bella told me I could use it. Talk about how we map things. So if you remember the CPS promise and 2030 commitment, you know, that's the blue and the yellow slides. You know, that's kind of like, that's a high level piece. From there, there's 4 priorities built, and they're still in progress. I know there are several meetings still going this week with different stakeholder groups. The survey, I think, closed yesterday or maybe today. So they're still being formulated, but there's, you know, probably 4 priorities. Each of those priorities then has initiatives, and right now each of those has 4 initiatives. So you went from kind of a high level place to go to 4 initiatives. Each of those has, or 4 priorities, just has 4 initiatives, and then you have initiative action plans. The action plans are really where, as a treasurer, I can put cost to things, right? I need to know what your action plan looks like before I can say it's going to cost you this, 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 and this. To go up a level, your initiatives, I think, have relative cost. So you can say, you know, initiative 1, or out of you know, priority 1, initiative 2 is 15% of our budget, or it's 5% of our budget. You know, and we can look at that year over year.
And not all those dollars are new dollars, or
No.
not all those are new initiatives. We might be already accomplishing those initiatives.
Yes.
But we haven't organized them as an initiative.
Yeah, and so that's why we just finished a process. We're having everyone go map last year's budget to the initiatives as best they could. So we can say, for initiative 1, we
We're
currently
already doing
spend
this.
X, right? The other thing to always think about this as well, they have a lot more flaws than we do, but the other thing to think about this as well is, this will not all be funded out of the general fund. And it isn't now. And so, you know, as we think about, you know, one of the big priorities is about, you know, having great teachers and, you know, developing great teachers. I mean, that is the crux of what Title II does. That's the crux of what our Title II funding does, is for professional development for teachers, for retention, for recruitment, those sort of things. And so I would.
You would say that that's where some of the money's gonna come, but you might have to rethink, what are they learning in the PD or whatever?
Yes,
Or
yes.
how is it being used?
Exactly. So the money might be there, the vendors might change, the work might change,
Yes,
all of those pieces might change, but we have a bucket of money broadly for that purpose. And there may be disruption. I would say at this point, we are basically 100% budgeted for what we do, including the grant funds. And that's one of the things I have to kind of dissuade people from, is like moving stuff to grants. The federal grants are already budgeted. So if you want to take things out of federal grants, you have to displace something. And obviously some things are easier to displace than others.
Okay.
You know, but you know, there's money, there's going to be new work streams, and then the goal is to marry those together. One more slide, Rob, sorry. Yeah, so again, I think when we met with Bellwether this week, you know, we had a very specific conversation, and Lauren, feel free to jump in, because we were part of it, with Akeisha and the team about this. And, you know, it was really about, you know, resources affect the impact, the scope, and the pacing. And like, money is a resource. It's maybe not the only one, but in some regards it is, right? So part of pacing is what can the district start now, what starts a little bit later in the plan, what starts even later. You know, ideally you can't start everything at once, because you don't have the capacity. Now, if you have enough money, you can buy the capacity, right? In theory, you know, like if we look at, you know, people in the room, if you look at, you know, the deputy superintendent, you know, she's got a finite amount of time. Now, if you have enough money, you can have 2 deputy superintendents, but realistically, you know, the way the money's going to be is, what can we begin? How quickly can we scale it? And how far does it reach? And so, like, one of the examples we used in our conversation was talk about instructional coaches. Like, you can make an argument that out of this strategic plan will come the need to say, hey, the district needs more instructional
And in
coaches.
this committee, for 3 years, we have heard, we really aren't happy about spending money on instructional coaches.
Yep,
I
that's
mean,
true.
we aren't. We haven't been. Now, if somebody comes in from outside and says that's what we're supposed to do, what are we supposed to do? We didn't want to spend it in Hamilton County. We wanted them to be in-house, not outside. And instructional coaches, again, is assuming the inadequacy of our teaching staff.
Are those decisions that are made at the school level?
No, they're made right here. We've been paying for the instructional coaches for a billion years. It used to be data coaches. And that's because somehow our people can't read. So they can't figure out data, and they're professional people. So I never understood that, but finally the world came around and we at least started having them be instructional coaches in particular fields of disciplines. And some of them were in-house, and some of them were from Hamilton County. We spent millions.
And that's why I bring this example
That is
up.
one of the big things that's gonna be forwarded.
Yeah, so that's why I brought it up, because exactly what you say is part of the thing is, okay, if we say, you know, instructional coaches, like you made the jump, right, to Hamilton County, right?
Yeah.
You know, but that doesn't have to be the way it goes, right? So taking a step back to, okay, what do we need? Do we need internal folks? Do we need external folks?
Tutors for
I
children,
think
I don't want
that's
tutors for grown-ups.
a great conversation. I mean, because as we talk about Hamilton County, I know with this most recent board, we've asked several times about the amount of money that's going to those to Hamilton County as a vendor, and not seeing the return on investment. And so, I mean, I know that is to some extent, the superintendent has make partnerships there, but also this is something that the schools have discretion over? I'm asking, like. do
Schools
the
have
schools-
discretion over at this point, yes.
That's what I was-
Or Hamilton County comes in, sends somebody from Hamilton County into each school and said, be sure you spend your grant money on us.
Right.
I mean, that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so we're not seeing a return.
So now that we're fired up, boom. So now that we've got you fired up,
That's right.
it's a perfect reason to use this example.
Yes, totally.
Because-
I appreciate you using it as an
No,
example.
no, because I know because I know there are strong feelings. I mean, I know there are strong feelings about this. I mean, we've had conversations about it, and so it's all the details. What does instructional coaching really look like? If the model we're using now, we don't feel is effective, what's a different model? And so are we adding staff?
Tutors for children, that's what I want. Not
Yeah.
tutors for grown-ups.
Are we adding staff? Are we adding contractors? If we're adding contractors, who's the contractor? So there's a billion decisions that come into it before you say, hey, just write the check, right? And so all that is part of your implementation plan. But
But I also think it goes to that larger conversation. So I'm okay with, having a balance of making sure that we have our internal resources and coaches, as well as if there, are some external coaches. I think that it helps to create that balance and depth of knowledge, and making sure that we are supporting our students. But the issue that I have is I don't think that we are truly upholding the KPI process. And so because we're not following what the vendor is expected to do, what the outcomes are supposed to be, we're just continuing to pay out money to vendors that are not providing us with the product that we're looking for.
okay, hold that thought.
Okay.
Beautiful. Hold that thought. Okay, so yeah,
Engage you for those transitions.
I feel like I set you guys up for this. Okay, hold that thought.
You
So
probably did. We're
Yeah.
being manipulated.
yeah, so at the bottom of this slide, I'm talking about two types of trade-offs, right? So everything we do is two types of trade-offs. Trade-off one is against other future uses of funds. So assume we have a levy that passes, we have new funds starting. Okay, even if we have new money, it's still a trade-off, right? If we choose to do this, then we're choosing not to do something, even if that something is increasing our cash balance. But it might be we're choosing to do this and delaying that. If you don't have new money, and then it's an even steeper trade-off because you're trading off against current uses of funds. So you're basically saying we have to stop doing that in order to do this. And so to bring it back to your point is part of the financial model and part of, I think, the priorities that have been identified. And again, these are draft initiatives, but I think it's important for the finance committee to see this. If you go one slide, Rob, is priority 4 in the big picture has some draft initiatives, and 2 of them are absolutely clearly 100% going to be something we talk about probably monthly in this meeting. And 4B is the biggest one that we talk about. It's exactly what you said, Ms. Mapp. Connect resource allocation decisions more directly to district priorities. Anchor spending to what they're committed to achieve and to KPI data. Develop criteria to extinguish what is fixed now, and what they can revisit with attention to equity and how resources are. I agree completely that all the KPI stuff we've done to this point has built us a foundation, but it is time to take that foundation to the next step. And as you said, to be, what did you say, be true to our KPIs or be accountable, whatever you said. You had a great,
Exactly. Put it in place.
you had a great word though, which is be accountable to our KPIs. And absolutely. And then 4D is about strengthening their multi-year plan. And I think that comes back to the trade-offs, is having a multi-year plan of where we need to be with facilities, where we need to be with curriculum adoptions, where we need to be with transportation, where we need to be with these things, allows us to set aside those things. So when trade-offs come to say, hey, we want to add 10 more instructional coaches, okay, well, what are we trading off against? And we, where is that trade-off? And if we decide to add them, then we have clear KPIs and clear feedback that they're making a difference. And if they're not making a difference, then you need to pivot in future years.
Well, and
To another- to
even
another-
with a strategic plan,
Mhm.
even one that's cost other people $500,000,
Mhm.
if the strategic plan comes to us and we adopt it or accept it, doesn't mean we adopt everything about it.
It's true.
It also doesn't mean we're gonna fund everything that's in that strategic plan.
Mhm.
Because until anybody tells me that the 7 people that were duly elected to represent the community are now no longer in charge, then no, there'll be stuff in that strategic plan we'll embrace, but there'll be other stuff we're not gonna fund. So the acceptance of a strategic plan we have to have some honesty about the adoption of what it really means to adopt it.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, again, to the trade-off model, there could be things that, the 7 duly elected people say, we're not willing to trade off. We understand we would like to do this, but out of all the other things we're doing, we're not willing to make a trade-off to do this. Or you say, we're only willing to trade off a little bit this year, and maybe next year we'll make a different trade-off depending on how this year goes. So I mean, the board maintains complete control of these decisions, as they always have. And the resources is about how you pace things.
One suggestion
Please.
I have about the KPIs and our contracts and how we can make those decisions. I've never really felt I feel like we get these contract charts every month, but I would love to see a bigger, more comprehensive view of all of our contracts at a higher summary level, and whether or not there can be a KPI attached to that. I get a little frustrated. I feel like we jump into the weeds and we don't really look high level enough at all these contracts to really see on a high level where are we allocating money. I'd rather start there and then jump into the weeds if it's possible to do something like that.
We have too many contracts.
We have a lot of,
And we have a lot of contracts, but
1,600.
I just wondered if there's a way to summarize those or consolidate those from a high level, and then sometimes from there you can jump down to see where maybe there's places to improve or where a KPI would show up. It's just a suggestion. It's just so much detail every time. It's hard to really be effective in reviewing that.
I agree, and I think maybe one of the benefits of strategic plan is it directs us more into which of these contracts we review. And I think one thing is, like, we can probably change the definition of a contract. I mean, and at least for the purposes of this group, as Bolton said, there's 1,600 contracts. Many of them are contracts because they need a signature on them. So if your school books the B&B Riverboat for their prom, like, that is a contract that has to be signed off on. I don't know if that's a contract that needs to be reviewed here in Finance Committee.
Right.
But the same thing with, Greater Cincinnati Water Works. There's zero reason for that. But when it comes to services provided at the schoolhouse to children, to teachers,
If a
to
child is
adults,
involved.
those are the ones that, and those should be the ones that really match up to the strategic plan priorities and initiatives.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't know if this, I'm just thinking about the last treasurer's report, and looking at some of the KPIs, it was very general. And for several entries that was in there, and it reflected we'll have 80% or will be staffed, at the school 80% of the time. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm really looking to see what is the actual
Specifics.
goal that the vendor is trying to accomplish, and really following that SMART goal process to see what we're measuring, and then, you know, however much time that they are intended to,
Yeah.
you know, accomplish this goal, did we in fact meet those measurables?
The goal should be more than attendance. right?
Absolutely.
I agree. I also think we have not done, but I'm ready. I'm ready if you guys are willing. I'm ready to start doing look backs. You know, everyone put KPIs in last year that said we will do this and this. You know, we bring people in mid-year and and it's good. I mean, people come in mid-year, but let's be honest. You know
Lots of people.
honest, the midpoint of a project, you know, you may be ahead or behind, but you can usually talk through that. But I mean, I'm willing to go backwards and say, look, this is what you said you were going to accomplish. We have the data now, you know, especially if it's tied to the report card or to the benchmarks, we can see where we're at.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and I think that is us upholding our fiduciary responsibility. I think that is upholding what the taxpayers are expecting of us. So when we're having conversations about strategic plan or a levy, this is what we can use to say there's that level of accountability, and again, to work towards obviously those outcomes that we're desiring to see and that they're expecting to see, so.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone can say it's a surprise. We've been tracking these things for several years. I mean, there will be a bit of an uproar, but again,
It's all right.
That's all
again,
right.
you know, I'm ready to do it if you're willing to do it.
Because I do think that throughout the whole contract, the whole budget process, I think there was some unanimity among the board about the fact that y'all weren't spending enough time figuring out which contracts to get rid of. I mean, it always like a second thought or an afterthought, and there was resistance from the administration. I mean, it just, yeah, this is something that has to be looked at.
Fair enough. All right.
Now, you do have in this presentation the idea of our report, right? That what's his name's been working on so heavily.
Cody,
I
yep.
don't want to take any time now because Cody's not here, but could the board members look at these several pages? The popular annual financial report, the PAFRA, and check and see which slides you kind of like or which pages you like, and get them to Mike, or things that you have better ideas about. These are some sample things, right?
Yes.
Some of which we've seen. I will tell you, there's still too much text in it.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll obviously pretty it up as we,
Absolutely, but you want it done by August something,
yeah,
right?
we'll use the marketing folks to pretty it up. But yes, tell us what you like, what you don't like.
It'll be fiscal 26.
It'll be fiscal 26. So, but yes, I would love to have it out August-y. End of August would be great.
I think end of August would be great.
Would be beautiful. I mean, my friends in Lakota already sent theirs out. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's so boring out there.
they've also used the same template for like 5 years.
That's right. They've been doing this for years.
So, I mean,
Wyoming's been doing this for about 110 years.
Exactly.
They
Once
click it.
you know, once you get the first year in, then it's just a
Exactly.
matter of updating things. So
But let's do that, so we save that time, but get
Appreciate it.
more ideas, different ideas to Mike, and then Mike will pass it on to Cody.
thank you.
And then I do want to spend a little bit of time yet, if we can, and even if it's just me, since it's the T word, transportation.
Oh.
But I do want to emphasize, as much as there's a financial crisis as such, to try to figure out how to deal with whatever's been going on at transportation, the single most important thing now in the next 30 or 40 days is making sure that the buses, Metro and Yellow and Special, run on time. Especially because we've been doing better in the last couple of years than in the nightmares that we went through. And if indeed we do have a levy, we cannot possibly have a levy if our buses aren't running on time. So there's bigger fish to fry than the buses running on time normally, but not right now.
Yeah,
So whoever, I don't know who all is making sure the buses are running on time.
Excellent.
That's the assistant treasurer.
Excellent. Save the best for last.
There you go.
So that's a great time to give a really big shout out to Director Pam Williams and her team.
Good.
Since she has taken over, she has improved the logistics, the operations, the supervision, the mainlining of the transportation department. And she continues to do that work. So they're already routing. I know Mike touched on it earlier. Kind of when we think about cost savings, there's nothing for immediate use because they're already routing the buses for the school year that are going to be big scale. But we can talk about what we've done in the working group to date, sort of some small ideas to kind of start implementing and continue working on, and then what the sort of plan is for the future. But I wanted to just give Pam her flowers. She's doing a great job. So the Transportation Working Group is a multi-department collaboration that I am chairing. So it includes Department of Student Services, Athletics, the Customer Care Team, Project Connect, Legal, the Treasurer, and the Transportations Department.
Could you also add to that some health people? I don't know if there is a health person, but part of transportation is health checks.
Yes, that,
Who does that?
yes, that is, I believe Rebecca Beach touched on that in the first meeting, so I'll get more information on who is the best person
It used
to.
to be growing well.
Mhm.
We used to have health statistics for every one of our schools. And we used to have eye checks for all of our children. We used to have overall health checks. That has fallen by the wayside when Growing Well joined the statewide alliance instead of just running our own local alliance.
Yes.
So
So we have
this-
a grant that takes kids for dental and vision services that we're continuing
That's
with. And I can get more information and collaborate more to get that health piece in there as well.
Yes, ma'am.
So the only other area that I would inquire about is the extracurricular piece, that may not traditionally fall under athletics.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is that going to be included here, or are they expected to, I guess, provide all of their requests through the athletics department?
It's a great question. So, from my understanding is that there's a member of Pam Williams' team who solely focuses on the dedicated buses, which includes extracurriculars, athletics, field trips, and is a separate contract with services for First Student and Peterson, I believe. What is it? UTS. Apologize, misspeaking. It's a lot of information I'm learning
But
very
we're
quickly.
We're still contracting out field trips though,
We are
basically.
for the dedicated, on the
Well,
dedicated buses.
Dedicated buses aren't, well, they don't do the dedicated, they're dedicated, but they're usually dedicated from the vendors. Are they?
Right.
What do we mean by dedicated? Do we own those buses?
No.
No.
So we have two separate contracts. We have the route contracts with the vendors, and then we have a separate contract that is the dedicated. The dedicated solely serves athletic, extracurriculars, field trips, and things like that.
And it was Wendy Popejoy that used to do the field trips and what have you?
Yes.
Still Wendy.
So
And
Wendy.
many of those field trips, I mean, the ones, let's say to the Holocaust and Humanities, that
Mhm.
was paid for by private funders.
Yes.
Okay, and obviously the first thing that will ever go when we have to save money is that the field trips will go.
Well, yeah,
in
I
all
mean,
likelihood.
it's definitely always a vulnerable consideration.
Do you have it down like we used to have it where the kids that are coming on, I think one of the big things you all said last time was that stop following the vendors and instead follow where the kids are. It's like follow the money, follow the children.
Yeah.
So we used to be able, and I say this every time, it does cost as much to move all our special needs kids than all of the yellow buses combined.
Well, there's where it becomes pretty complex.
Yes, it
and,
does.
And that is one of the main goal right there, number one, is to build this comprehensive costing model. As I was starting to work for getting this information, there aren't significant tracking for each piece to break down and to figure out that. So there are special needs, there are children with special needs, I don't say anything incorrectly. There are children with special needs that are riding yellow buses, but have additional services like monitors or special harnesses or sitters, or it's a wheelchair bus, but they're technically on a yellow bus route. So the costs are increased for that route as a whole, but to piece out what pieces related to yellow bus versus thing, that is what I'm trying to build with this costing model.
Follow the children. I mean,
Yes.
one of the things that the public needs to know, for example, chronic absenteeism, basically that's what, 10 days absence or something?
10%, 10%.
10% absence, and that's, people need to know that. People think it's higher than that when you say it. Well, in the public, when you're talking to the public, one of the things you have to say is that we have children that arrive to school in ambulances. It shuts down any dialogue at all when you say something like that. People don't understand the needs that our children have. And so I do think, we have to be careful when we start separating it out that way, but the board has to know the costs that are
Yes.
being associated with that for the, like you all said, the money that we saved supposedly putting everybody, 7th and 8th graders on yellow bus. Well, that was fine until we still needed some 7th and 8th graders, first of all, that wouldn't, so it cost us enrollment. Or that you put them on yellow bus, but yes, they need to have a monitor with them. So we put that money that we saved, we probably didn't save. There were other costs, so we do want this detail that you're putting together for us, but, and the only way you can do it is follow the children. But you don't want anybody to feel like they're being put upon or segregated or separated.
Right.
So I'm sorry.
It's okay. So yes, so that's initiative one, I think we have, is just to understand really what are the costs, what's impacting the costs. And that is what we're working to build out in our next session. The second one is to identify quick cost savings, small cost savings, big cost savings over time as we start to understand and to actually predict what the real cost savings are. To your point, the example that was used at the board meeting was, we put kids on Metro thinking we're saving all these yellow bus routes, but we needed some of those kids now to have independent or individual van service. So costs rise there, they go down here, what's the net cost? And we don't know at this moment. We don't have the capability to drill into those costs at this moment. So moving on to the next slide. The first thing we did in the first working session, which was held last week, was we took a really detailed narrative of each applicable department's transportation needs, what's legally required, what we're currently doing, if they're one and the same or not, how each department is tracking student movement and student needs and relaying those information to the transportation department. And again, Pam's incorporates that with very little logistical discrepancies, but we don't have the cost components associated with those. So each department is already tracking their students' movements and needs. What we want to do now is we want to sort of assign cost components to those.
When you say departments, does that include schools or not? No.
No. So the transportation department is over all the routings for the schools.
Okay, yeah.
So what I'm discussing is what are the special things that Project Connect has that add on to the route's needs, or what are the exceptional service items that are required for, like the kids experiencing homelessness, or the kids in foster care, or the kids with special, the Department of Student Services.
So, and I think you're trying to find that method in which to do it, but what comes up for me are the routes for Project Connect, right? So I recognize that it can be a very comprehensive need, right? Where they may be traveling from a hotel or motel that's all the way out in the Springdale area,
Yes.
and have to navigate several stops before they actually get to their school. So I'm like, how, with those those concerns constantly coming up, how do you manage to budget for that?
And that's the question on the table. What I'm, the way I'm considering approaching that is, and Director Rebecca Beach also does an incredible job. I think that the leaders are doing a great job at this. She has the information on her students at all time, and she relays those needs to the transportation department. The transportation then changes the logistics based on the needs. So we can back into the cost for that student by figuring out where they fit into the logistical components of that route. Can they fold onto a yellow bus route that's already happening? No additional cost. If that kid moves then month over month, and now they're getting van service from a different site, we can see that pop out when we run the report 1 month to the next. And we would understand where that cost component comes from.
I mean,
So-
we change the routing, we don't change the budget currently, which is
Yes.
that's the thing. So as we change the logistics, we need to change
Yes.
the budget projection. Does that make sense? So we're, like Rebecca Beach does a good job of communicating with Pam's team, right? To say, okay, this student needs to go, like you said, from this hotel to Springdale down to their school. Okay, they, like, well, the bus will get there, the kid will get picked up, good. But what our part is, we need to change the budget to say, okay, we were anticipating this kid on yellow bus until today.
Yes.
And now they're in this van, and now we need to say, okay, that's gonna increase our van cost.
Yes. And so that movement, but it all gets communicated to Pam's team, and she can update the logistics. If we can understand the cost of that projection of that logistical component at a point in time, sorry, maybe I'm trying to explain it as best I can. If we're starting at what is happening in the transportation logistical system, we can work backwards to figure out how much it costs.
Yeah.
And I get that. So I guess the only aspect of it, like I hear you say that you're trying to work backwards, obviously, to kind of have like that, maybe that baseline or that projection. I'm just, I guess, trying to figure out if we will have enough cushion or contingency dollars in place when we continue to see that, you know, certain transportation needs change.
Yes. And see, and I think these are incredibly good questions to ask. I hope to have better answers for them as we continue to build out these components. It is important to mention, especially here publicly, that these kinds of transportation needs are legally required.
Yeah.
So if we decide that we're gonna, it doesn't matter what we decide, we still have to do it. So even if we know we have to do it and it's gonna be over budget, as soon as we know it, as long as, if it's earlier than we know it this year, towards the end of the year, we can adjust spending other places and account for increased legal needs in transportation. And the same goes with transporting charter school kids and non-public school kids and foster kids.
The final thing, I really do want to extend great gratitude to you and in the work that you're doing in your team, because I really appreciate this comprehensive view, and I recognize that there's several things that you're learning, right? I think I like that and appreciate that because it allows you to have an open mind about the areas that you research and explore. And I also really appreciate just the intentionality that you and your team is putting around this, because when we've asked certain questions about transportation, I think it was a very blanket, general overview to say, well, this is what we have to do, but it wasn't really explaining or expounding upon the why, and you're really giving us a thorough depth of knowledge of the things that you're considering to make sure that we are being responsible in how we're handling and approaching the transportation concern. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, can you, in terms of creating a budget, you're gonna have, I think to follow on Board Member Schnapp's comment was, you've got to have a certain amount of money set aside for contingency for changes that you don't anticipate. And I'm wondering if you can look in the last couple prior years to maybe see how much changes there were, and to give you an idea of what that needs to be budgeted. And obviously, it's probably going to be a number nobody likes, but still, it's a way to get a handle on that. I think the other thing that I think is going to be helpful, I think it's important for us to be able to, at a high level, to understand how much of our spending is for non-public students and how much is for special needs students,
Yes.
separate from, I think that's a really important numbers for the public to know when we go into budgeting or the levy or whatever. So,
Yeah, one of the suburban schools around Columbus, I heard this earlier this week when I was in Columbus, and I can't remember
It's
if
Columbus.
it's a Pickerington or somewhere. It's a suburban district. I mean, they are spending more money transporting their non-public school kids than they're spending on their public school kids. And that's beginning to be a phenomenon everywhere at this point in time. I have I'm gonna say this again, the single most important thing right now, and whether it's the internal audit chief, or whether it's the treasurer, or whether it's the assistant treasurer, or whether it's the superintendent, or I don't care who it is, the buses have to run on time this year.
Yes.
And Pam is out there all by herself for all intents and purposes. She's got a wonderful team, I'm sure, but she's not necessarily having too many people to whom to report or anybody double checking what she's doing on whatever it is she's doing. And that is a lot of pressure in a normal year. In what might be a levy year, let alone a year where we have figured out that whatever's been happening in that office internally regarding the vendors and invoices and whatever, everybody needs, all hands on deck on those routes and the special buses and whatever. The other thing I'd suggest is that there are at least 3 or 4 board policies that speak to transportation. Please read those policies. It will give you some guidance. As an example, and I know we may not have time, but most of our principals could do this. According to those board policies, it would be great to know how all of our children are getting to school. And our transportation policies talk about walking, talk about bicycles, talk about bus, talk about whose parents are dropping them off, and talks about which kids are in their private cars. It would be a very important thing to know how everybody's getting to school. And it'd be great to be able to tell the city people, listen, we've got 3,000 kids that are walking to school. That'd be good for CPD to know that. So I'm just, I don't care how many people have to be assigned to help her with the routes and checking the routes, but please do that. If the superintendent were here tonight, today she's finally on vacation, which is great. But nobody else has a more important job than that right now, especially in this quasi-levy year. But yeah, do find out, read a little bit about those policies, because it's a good place to start.
I just echo your sentiments, and also, I know that there's been, some positive changes with customer care, and so making sure to coordinate with that department as well. And I appreciate that you talked about just the safety in terms of getting to school, whether it is, the students are walking or riding the bikes or on the bus, because we did have a lot of families come throughout the beginning of the year last year expressing serious concerns. So we want to make sure that we're able to mitigate those challenges there.
Right. And by all means, I always say it every year, sometimes we don't do it, but the law requires the board to approve every bus stop. And that They have facilities or transportation. It was Burkhart's group that did it supposedly. And they would come and they would put it in writing that indeed we have inspected every bus stop. Now, that does not, I don't believe, include the metro piece, but it includes every yellow bus for sure. And it means you go out there and look at it. And then come back to us and then we put our names on that piece of paper. So it's, because it's a resolution. So thanks.
Okay.
Go on.
So the first session, I think, was really helpful for understanding sort of all the data flows around it, and also then the transportation, how they take all the data and turn it into the logistics. So scratching the surface there, but I think, really helpful in understanding the pieces. The next step for the next working session is planned for next week. And that will take place just between the treasurer's office and the transportation. And I'm informally calling it a deep dive into the Versatrans system for me. So an education into what is happening in their logistical system, how are reports generated, how do the vendors know where to send the buses every day, how do they know what van to send, how do they know what modifications to send, and seeing what reports are available to me, and then working then to see how much does a yellow bus route cost, and being able to build out a customizable logistic report with cost components included. That will be the kind of the ability to build this costing model and budget projections project.
Mike,
So-
did you do all this when you were assistant treasurer?
No, I lucked out.
So that's the next step. The first session, or the second session, is a plan for next week. And that will kind of be the capstone to start transitioning into building the model out. The other thing that came out of the working groups first were these immediate costs for some small cost savings. These aren't going to be the big hits that we're hopeful for, but one thing that was implemented last year was that we can bill back certain agencies or other school districts for services. So if we have a child experiencing homelessness that's displaced out of our district, but we're busing them into one of our schools, we're able to bill half of that route, half of that transportation cost to the district in which they're residing in. And similarly, we have a partnership with Jobs and Family Services that if we have foster kids that are displaced and need exceptional service, they can't fold into a yellow bus route, JFS will split the cost of that route, of
Excellent.
that transportation. So
That's
we've
that will
begun,
follow the kid instead of the vendor.
yes.
Kisser, that's a kisser.
That's the Kisser piece, and then the project, McKinney-Vento team, they bill, the offset is that if there are students experiencing homelessness within our district that are being bused by other districts, we have to pay half of those bills. So I'm gonna be
Okay.
working to understand how much we've billed for each of those, how much we've paid for each of those, and netting out the cost difference to see, are we saving there? And making sure we ramp up that service, so we're tracking that really well, so we're getting every penny that we can. The second one is in discussing it with the athletics team. One of the problems with the dedicated costs is that if there are a lot of, let's say, games and field trips within a week or a month, after we hit a certain number of routes, the drivers start experiencing overtime pay. So if there's like 10 games on this week in October, we'll be for sure paying, I don't know if that's the right number, don't be mad, athletics, but as an example, we'll be sure paying overages charges. So what the athletics team is looking at is how can they change some of their game structures to not have, 10, 20 games in one week and then, go forward. Yes, but it is a potential to save. We pay a significant amount of overage charges for dedicated. And so it's a way to look at that and try to work then backwards through Wendy Pope to say, we have 10 field trips this week, let's maybe send some the next week. We don't have to pay overage charges, or however that works.
There does need to be, and little districts do it, the coordinator of field trips. meaning that they don't all get scheduled at the same time or something. I mean, so it's coming in from 66 different
Right.
schools. The other 65 schools don't know what you're scheduling.
Right. And so it's all flowing through the transportation team right now. Again, as I'm learning about this, my understanding of things will evolve and deepen. But those things were discussed in the first working session as ways to kind of decrease overage charges on the dedicated side.
I honestly just think some of this is just people understanding the cost impacts.
Absolutely.
And that you have the schools doing their field trips. You have, honestly, the PLCs are another big group for the students, like more Girls to Women, those sort of things, doing their events. And you have athletics, and getting people in a room is like, oh, we don't really have to all go on the same date. Like just starting to,
You need a district calendar.
yeah, start.
I mean, it's as simple as that. You need a district calendar.
So yes, so continuing to increase our understanding of that to decrease the overage charges. One thing that was implemented last year and will continue with is invoicing scrutiny. So sometimes we get invoices from the vendors and they don't include the correct number of days of buses. They're billing us for days we didn't have school. And so we have the team down there looking at every invoice and tracking it against calendars, make sure we're being charged the right amount, make sure we're being charged correctly, making sure that, if they're charging us for the van that, we actually used that van, that kid actually went to school that day. So that team's done great work last year. They're going to continue doing that work next year to hopefully save some money from us just paying invoices. Sometimes it causes the delays, which can cause the backlog of this traditional budget to actual tracking, but that's what we're building, this new costing model. And then the other thing, when discussions with legal, is the way Metro bills us for the passes for the kids. So from my understanding is anytime a kid taps their bus card one time, we're billed for the entire year for that kid. So if they tap it twice in the beginning of the school and then they start getting a ride to school, doesn't matter, we've paid for the whole year for that kid. So one thing that legal counsel was looking into was the ability to have them bill us on half years.
Which they always said that they were going to. And we also said for 3 years that if a kid's not using their pass, we're not paying, we don't have to pay for it. But that has never been the case. We have bought passes at the beginning of the year. And I'm not even sure that tapping has to even have anything to do with it. We send the money to Metro for everybody using the pass. But the reality is, you could also tell us, there are plenty of families who actually may not want their kids to have that pass. I mean, and who doesn't use the pass shouldn't have a pass, because we're paying for those passes. Now, granted, it's, remarkably cheap. If it's less than a year's pass is what, several $100s. Supposedly $350. The yellow
390, I
bus
think
was
now.
$3,500 or something. I don't buy that anymore anyway. But yeah, let's say it's $500.
It's under
or
four.
400, yeah,
It's under
400,
four, yeah.
$350,
That's
whatever.
$390
But
and
that's
25
$300 and
cents
some dollars that won't be.
for
that's
one
each
full year
kid.
pass per kid.
I mean, if it's used, it is a great.
It's a great deal.
It's a great
If
deal.
it's not used, it's a waste of our money.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's.
So, other things in transportation.
That is the update as of now. So, small cost savings on the immediate horizon, and hopefully understanding each cost component will at least allow us to understand how to budget for it, what the components are, what we are legally required to do, the non-public and charter school side of it, as well as long-term costing strategies.
Well, and also there are, even though we've overtaken Cleveland as the second largest school district, most board members would be telling you again that our enrollment is down. So if there's 1,000 fewer kids or 2,000 fewer kids, there should be reduced costs.
on-
Can't wait to find out.
Depends
How
on,
you gonna
depends,
follow the kids?
depends on where they are and how much
Well,
they
it
cost.
does, it does, it does.
I mean, that is one of the things about,
You're still gonna run a yellow bus.
Yeah.
that's the thing about yellow bus routes, if it picks up 2 kids or it picks up
Well, and
60
that's
kids,
a
it's the
part
same
of
bus
the
route.
issue. Yeah,
Yeah, so.
yes, ma'am.
So if I may, luckily, we've had some conversations between internal audit and Assistant Treasurer Martin, as well as with Director Williams, to talk through the correlation between this work plan as well as the past recommendations. So for context, internal audit performed an audit of transportation back in fiscal year 2019. Of those recommendations, it really spanned the entire financial process from the original budgeting to contracting, then and nows, invoicing review, things of that nature, all the way down to the GL entries. And so for context, I just wanted to share this in advance of next week's audit committee meeting. So transportation had marked the remaining 4 recommendations as complete as of their April 2026 update. But we all thought, in light of recent events, it may be suitable to possibly reopen one or more of those recommendations. So through that conversation, we decided just instead of opening all 4, which were at the time process documentation, budgeting, contract controls, and then and nows, to just simply open one, which was the budgeting process. I think it will have impacts on other areas, but for the sake of simplicity, just call it one recommendation. So we will be bringing that if it comes up and we have time at audit committee and mentioning that at the time. Ms. Martin will be there to answer further questions if the audit committee has them. But we thought this could be a good opportunity to perhaps just reopen and let this work team play out to ensure all of the transportation recommendations are in fact fully completed and remediated, which sends the trigger potentially to us as internal audit or the audit committee to say it's ready for a re-audit. So with all of that in mind, we just wanted to ensure we're getting this to that actual completion and remediation stage before marking it as such. I'll pause there and, thank you for the moment to explain this and add this on, but if Liz, you have anything else to add there?
I think it's very useful, and I do actually remember the presentation. And the audit chief was doing the presentation. So too was the director at the time, who of course had to be fired, if I recall correctly, who was in collusion with the Metro folks in changing the routes. And how shall I say it? The audit was great and needed to be implemented. But it was a very weird thing sitting there in that audit committee with I think you were there. It was weird to even have the director be part of the presentation. But I think that's great if the changes can be made and if you can be of help. And I think you're right to do it from the budget piece rather than the other pieces. But yes, it was a great audit, but we had a problem internally from a personnel standpoint. But by all means, priority 1, everyone help Pam. She's more than
Absolutely.
capable, but she's in the hot seat more so than the superintendent in these next 60 or 90 days. Whoever's in charge of these darn buses, it's the thing nobody wants to touch because everybody gets a call and parents feel strongly about it. And we sat through year after year after year of spending at least 4 board meetings in the fall being reamed because of this. And I know it's been more expensive, but if that was the cost of on time, so be it. But now let's figure out how we can still be on time and still save at least 10% of the budget for this coming year. You have a comment?
Yeah, so, Lauren, thank you for just giving that context and how audit is going to continue to assist and support with the transportation piece. I guess my question, considering that there were the recommendations that you all had, they were closed out. My concern is, how do we strengthen the controls? Because there were, yes, and I think your team does a great job, and I think you do a really great job as well. I'm just trying to identify how do we miss critical pieces? You know what I mean? And so, how do we have those two areas working in sync with one another? So whatever the findings are and whatever the recommendation is, and when we determine that they're closed, how do we know on our end that they are actually, areas that were resolved?
Yes, great question. So essentially what we do, and just as for the public who's listening to this conversation as well, after we issue an audit, we then essentially have to step away to maintain our independence. Management gets to work on implementing. The mechanism that we simply provide for management is the tracker for the past recommendations. And we kind of disclaim, although we've provided support and review for reasonableness, we have not in fact re-audited or validated, to your point, when something is marked complete. And this is broadly speaking, not just for transportation. So what it means then for us and why that's so critical when everything is marked complete, it says to us from management, it's a message to say we are ready for a re-audit if you, the audit committee, the board and district leadership deem it appropriate. And so where that level of future or further, I should say, reassurance would come from is in the scenario, once this is marked complete, we then could say, great, we'll come in and perform a re-audit and do a thorough assessment to then give you all that full reassurance that everything has worked. It also is nice too, because if something didn't maybe pan out as well as management had intended it to, it's also that, continuous improvement cycle. So sometimes those learnings are not bad either. We did our best and maybe that didn't pan out exactly as we wanted. So in this scenario and where we are with transportation, we're at that moment of when you all kind of, and I'm pointing to Liz, I'm just pointing to the general management, but when you all say, I know, poor Liz, she doesn't want to sit next to me anymore. But when they say we're ready, that means we can come in and do that work. Yep, great question.
In terms of what management of the transportation budget controls will become, really specific things will come out of these working sessions, but in the minimum, it's revisiting our costing components on a monthly or weekly basis, like maybe weekly to start with and going towards monthly, and understanding our obligated costs to budget versus waiting for actual invoices to come in months later and doing our actual to budget. So to Lauren's point, if they were to come audit transportation now, they would again find issues with then and nows, issues with incomplete budgeting processes, and we already know that. So we want to make sure that stays open until we actually improve these processes with the costing model, the tracking softwares, the departmental collaboration. When we mark that complete, we would hope then that Lauren independently and her team would come in, they'd pull that information, they'd say, yep, good to go, you fixed the problems, and now we understand what's going on, so.
We good? Last comments? Buses need to run on time.
So to recap,
That's my recap.
buses run on time.
And we have a levy vote coming up in the, could we settle in on the 27th
27th.
at 5 or 5:30? 5 on the 27th.
Tune in on the
Wanna Make sure the
27th.
public knows about that.
Tune in on the 27th.
And it'll be noticed appropriately as a special public.
Audit committee's next Wednesday.
And the audit committee's next Wednesday. And we're giving them some work to do with those 3 items and
Open
other
door.
stuff as well. Anything else? You need anything from board members or anybody regarding the levy vote? Or is that the item for the 27th?
You probably closer to the agenda. I know the
Is
levy's
the levy-
on there. Is there?
I'm sorry.
Is there another agenda item for the 27th?
It's the Fairview.
Yeah.
Fairview,
The
okay.
Fairview. And the levy.
And the levy.
And the levy.
Yes.
Yep.
So the Fairview is.
Double check that.
Okay,
Because I think it may have been changed.
All right, whatever. As long as we, I
just
know
wanna
we're
be
voting on
sure.
the levy, that's, that's it, one way or the other, and we have 7, 8, or, the, earned income tax. I will say well, Mike heard me say this before, one encouraging thing about it, I did have to be on, Bill Cunningham's show, yesterday or day before yesterday. And, you know, Bill usually trashes us just every chance he possibly gets. But he did not at all, and actually was almost fair. And, talked about the challenges we have and what have you. So the folks that listen to 700 don't really was important because they listened to what he says. So I was a little encouraged about that. And I did say as one board member, I'm more interested in the 7 versus the 8, and rather than the earned income tax. But it went very well, and it went well with Sloaney the day before that. So I think some of the TV
Yeah, someone, I think, reported that that the board wasn't making a decision for the November ballot, and that is not true. That is,
Yeah.
so, but.
So
One thing has been on my mind, I've had a little Q&A with Michael about this. We're saying this is the first time we've asked for new money. in
10
In
years.
10 years.
But with the rule changes with the 20 mil floor, isn't that preventing us from garnering money that our local voters have already approved? In other
Mike?
words, it's capping local money that we would get otherwise, correct? So in a way, I sort of view this as we're not asking for new money, we're just asking to restore the money that our voters have already approved because of a change in the rules from Columbus. It's not really asking for new money, we're just restoring money that our local voters have already approved. I don't know if that's a message worth saying or not. It's almost more of a renewal than new money, in a sense.
except when they go to the ballot and they vote, it says, here is new money and it will cost
I
you.
understand all that.
But yes, I don't know enough to say whether or not you're right. If
I
Mike
don't-
says that's correct, it's correct, but
Mike hasn't said it's correct, but might say it's partially correct.
Yeah,
yeah, he says
I will
that a
say,
little more political the older he's treasurer.
But
of
there is a component of that.
no, I will say this, I will say this. Property tax reform is kind of property tax reform and the failure to fund the Fair School Funding Plan is why we're here today.
Right.
And I think if you look at our historical trends, and again, when we were on the 20 mil floor, we were getting regular increases at reappraisals that kept our income going up. If the state was funding us, and I think we talked about that, if the state just funded us at $5,000 a student instead of $2,500, we would not be in this situation. It would more than make up for what we're asking for. I think to Ms. Bolton's point, it's going to show as a new money levy. It is a new money levy, but the reason we're back, the reason we're asking is because the state funding is not there.
The rules have changed.
We're off the 20 mil floor. And so we're not going to get any reappraisal bump.
That's right.
So it is a transfer of responsibility from
20 mil floor is,
20 mil floor is the minimum amount minimum amount of millage that school districts will collect. And so back in the old days, back in the late 70s, the state put a thing called House Bill 920 in. House Bill 920 adjusts all of your property tax rates down when values increase. The idea was that people would not get hit by inflation. That has been the law of Ohio for a long, long time. And of course, soon after that happened, people realized school districts were now basically losing money as these things went. And so they put the 20 mil floor in that said every school district has to collect at least 20 mils of property taxes. And CPS relied on that strategy for quite some time, because emergency levies did not count against the floor. And so when we went, probably starting in 2000, when the district went and put levies on, based on the structure we had, we said, we'll do emergency levies and keep ourselves close to the floor. One change in law now added all those things back to the floor. So we went from being at 20 mils to being at like 30 some mils, 35, 38 mils. We won't be back to the 20 mil floor for decades. Ever. And now, currently, income taxes do not count against the 20 mil floor.
It'll only be a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time before someone notices that and changes that law.
Yes, the levy update and Fairview is on the agenda.
Thank you.
So the income tax option was I think it was for 8 mils, was what percent?
7.8.
It's 7.8, yeah, because it was for a fixed amount.
A 7.8,
It ends up being 7.8 mils, yeah.
that's a percentage?
Yeah, when you do an income tax, you say what amount you want to get in, and then they were
7.8 mils.
They equivalate it back to
But
7.8
what was
mils.
the income tax percentage rate? What was the rate?
0.75%.
0.75%. And so if property tax gets abolished completely, what kind of percentage are we looking at to make up for that if we go for income tax?
Property taxes get abolished completely, like state starts over. Like I don't, it's such a, and I've heard people say you should plan ahead. It is such a catastrophic thing.
Yeah.
That
Property tax being eliminated?
across the state, yes, you basically start over with local government. You have income tax, sales tax. I don't know what other types of tax, but I'm assuming, that's the other thing, we as a district are limited to 2 types of taxation. It's property tax or it's school district income tax. We can't do sales tax. We can't do any sort of sin tax, any of these other taxes that, we don't charge significant fees. We don't have permitting. We don't have a lot of the things that are available to city and county governments.
And that is dating back to 1787. That is to hold us accountable to the taxpayers and the voters. There's no other governmental entity that is that dependent or that held accountable.
I would say there's no other government entity that people interact with as much as your school district. If you think about where do you interact with your local government? It's your school district. Whether your kids go there or whether you're just, using our playground on the weekend, or whether you're just, walking by, you're interacting with the school district.
Well, big decision. We do need to have Dan be able to tell us about how this vote goes. If there's a vote that occurs, what's the ability to change that vote? In that almost same motion.
You mean within the meeting?
Meaning, what if you have, we need to have 5. So if we need to have 5, do we present, and I know we've talked about this before, do we present the earned income tax first to see if there's 5? Do we present the 7 first or the 8 first? And if the 8 gets 5 or more, then that's done. But I don't think we want to present it like like we do when we're doing officers or something. Or do we do all? Maybe we do all 3, and you go around the table and say you'd like earned income tax 7, 8. Okay, so how do we do that? And then once it's sort of you're kind of polling publicly rather than voting in a way.
I mean, it's still a vote, though.
It's
I think
still
a
gonna be a
roll call.
vote,
it's
yeah,
still a roll call
eventually.
vote.
So it'll be up to the president to figure out how to present it.
Well, we did make an official recommendation from our committee.
Yes, we did.
Yes, and I'm so sorry that I have deviated from that recommendation.
Well,
But again,
that's okay,
just
you're
to,
allowed to.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and so thank you, but, again, just looking at where, where we are as a district, looking at our student demographic, I think, again, that it is really important to recognize that, yes, in increasing our property taxes, this does have a huge effect on our Black families, on our seniors. And so I will want to ensure that, as we talked about on Monday, that the property taxes are distributed more equitably, so that our students are able to continue to remain in the district that they attended and that their families have attended for generations.
And my opposite position of that is that our constituency, by and large, does not suffer from paying property taxes in the numbers that they would in paying income tax. That the demographics of Greater Cincinnati, including our outlying areas, there's just too many renters that are part of our constituency. My concern is asking for the least amount that we need. As I'm one of those people, I'm a retired person, fixed income, yacht property, that's who I hang with. Nobody's happy about it. But that's why I'm in favor of the 7 instead of the 8, because if we're gonna ask our property owners, and the benefit of asking property owners is that business actually has to pay property taxes. And they actually disproportionately pay for the property taxes rather than necessarily paying income tax. And I want to be able to say, and I've talked to Mike about it, he's kind of reassured me, or he's at least tried to make me feel better about the 7 or 8 or whatever. But I want to be able to say we're asking for the least amount that we know we can do. Not only the least amount that can pass, but the least amount that we can serve our kids. That's why I get, even as the difference between 7 and 8 is $10 million a year, I still want to be able to tell the taxpayers, we're asking for what we really need, not what we want, not what would make us comfortable or prevent us from having to make any cuts for 3 years or 2 years. And we know it will keep us from making cuts first year. And we can do with the, $60 million, $65 million more would help us, because that's the inflation piece, that's this or whatever. Plus, I think 7 versus 8 is a lower number, has a better chance to pass. If it doesn't pass, we're making at least a $60 million cut next year. Is that right? Is it 60 or close to it?
I mean,
It's a difference of $66 million. But I had a question. I wonder if between now and the 27th, maybe we should find a consultant at EC Economic Group or whatever to really have a good idea of what will cost the taxpayer more, the income tax or the property tax. I mean,
Don't we have that?
do we have that?
We got it down to their paycheck.
It's hard. I mean, it's funny because we've had a couple conversations about this, and people's property values versus their income, it's very hard to align those. I mean, there are people who do very well who have very inexpensive property.
Right.
Either just because they've made choice. Yeah, it's about your life choices, right? The size of your house to some extent is about your life choice and how much where you spend, how much money you have to spend, and then how you choose to spend it. It's also like there's a lot of things about the earned income tax. So, I mean, I would say this, I think this is an important thing is, you know, we're about 58% renters in the district, right? So if you go to an income tax, you know, all of those people are now paying something they weren't directly paying before, right? That's going to be a change, you know, obvious, it's going to be a change to them. If you are a property owner, in this case of an earned income tax, and you're retired, or you're retired, or you're not earning wages, you're not seeing any increase. There are a group of people that that are going to see it both ways, right? There's a group of people who are working and own property, but it's very hard to say. At least I don't feel comfortable saying, hey, your average person with a $200,000 house is making X amount of dollars. If you want to, it's very easy to do individually. I think as an individual person, you can look at those charts we said and say, for me individually, here's how much my income is, here's how much my house is worth. For me individually, it would be better to do this or better to not do that. But I think it's hard to generalize your Joe or Susie taxpayer and say, okay, it would be better for them to do it this way or that way, just because there's such a range in such a difference in income and property values. And that's why people have pushed back against property taxes for years, because property value isn't always a good measure of your ability, of your wealth and your ability to pay.
And so, but wouldn't, and maybe I'm hearing it differently, I don't know, but if you're saying 58% are renters, wouldn't that require though, or wouldn't that create more of intentional investment within our district than a said few?
I'm trying to understand.
Like, so in terms of, so if 58% are renters, and if we're looking at an income tax levy, that aside from our seniors, right, that are on fixed income, wouldn't that be more of a equitable distribution of supporting the district versus just those that are homeowners?
I mean, you're asking people who aren't paying today directly. Now, obviously, they're paying indirectly through their rent, right? The rent comes into, you're asking people who aren't paying directly today to pay in the future.
And so what's, I guess.
I think that
My concern is kind of the question that you're asking, because you've got renters who will now, if it's an income tax, they're going to be paying, if they're in earned income in the district, they're going to have more taxes to pay. They probably are not going to see a reduction in their rent. There's no, where they're currently paying property tax through their rent. The likelihood that somebody's rent's going to go down proportionally, I wouldn't expect that to happen. There's no way for that to automatically happen. So that's.
But it is also, but if say for instance, from that scale of possibly $30,000. So if they are already at an increased rate with their property tax, and then if they have an income tax, and I don't know how accurate it is, but if you're taking maybe $8 out of someone's check versus I already have this current, amount that I'm paying in terms of property tax, and then if I get hit with another property tax increase, that could actually be more than what you're equating it to or associating with having to pay in both spaces.
Yeah, that's the big question. And
yeah,
I think
this is the question we all struggle with. I think this is why a lot of districts have done an income tax as a replacement to a property tax. And it does exactly what you say, but it kind of makes this grand bargain with your community to say we're not going to ask for more money, but we're going to change how we ask for it. So we're going to let a property tax expire. So now your seniors, your property owners are going to see some relief, but we're going to add an income tax. So we're going to keep collecting the same amount of money as a district, but we're going to change who's paying it. And so people get some relief, or property owners get that relief, but also the people working now have to put now have to put some money in they weren't before. So your person who's in both spots, they probably see a benefit. Your person who is a property owner but not actively working sees a benefit. But it's kind of that community conversation to say, we understand we need this money. We're asking the same amount of money. We just want your support to change how we get it.
And for me, I try to look at things from a collective mindset. And so if we're talking about a community conversation, this is a community conversation. If we're talking about the strategic plan and how this is a community effort, well, that to me aligns more with the community focus of everyone making an investment in our district that is more equitable than just a certain demographic of residents.
I think you're right that it's the more equitable thing to do. But I don't think it's the more political thing to do
Well,
in the
it
next
makes it-
in the next 100 days.
What Mike is talking about makes a lot of sense for the FY
It's a
29,
replacement piece.
FY 29 levy.
We're gonna be at income taxes, we're gonna have to, and I believe in them. But I think the replacement strategy is good. I think also asking the lowest amount, the 7 versus 8, also helps set you up for the next 2 asks we're gonna make. We're gonna make another ask in 29, and we're gonna have this ask or something, celebration, however it's gonna be in 30-31 with the removal of the FMP. So to me, it's important for the reputation of the board before us and after us, is to ask for the least amount. But yeah, you're right, from a community standpoint, yeah, a lot of people have been benefiting from our schools that haven't contributed to the taxes. But this is not the time that I want to ask them to pay more at this time, because we gotta try to run up the vote as best we can. I mean, that's what this is. One of the reasons we pass at low 70s and 60s and what have you is because a significant number of people that are in our town, in our district, don't necessarily have the property tax burden, but people do. Old people,
Well,
rich
you mean
people.
directly?
Yeah, well, but that whole indirect, people's rent goes up when the landlord has to take the trash out. I mean, nobody even believes in landlords anymore doing the right thing by them. They're just, rent is so difficult at this point in time and unaffordable. But I think it'll be a good vote, but I'll tell you, the thing is singularly more important is that it must pass, whatever we do.
And as a member that came for the hearing of the public, I think it's important to let the community decide.
And we're gonna let them, but we're only gonna give them one option.
Absolutely.
That's the issue.
Yeah, we can't,
Well, I don't know, it'd
we
still be
can't,
interesting to see. if
we can't have multiples on the ballot.
I doubt sincerely that there will be 5 votes for earned income tax. I think we will be not lucky, but I think we will have 5 votes, and which will then have to merge into 7 votes in some sort of parliamentary procedure.
And I think ultimately everyone has to vote their conscience and what
Sure.
they think ideally is best. And so I don't.
As long as
tend-
they're able to change that vote to a unanimous vote, if indeed they are willing to. Because you really don't want, because what happens, the last time that we did this, only one person voting against it was part of the reason that levy failed. So you have to, that's why I'm saying parliamentarily, we have to figure out, after everybody votes their conscience, which is okay, and expresses their best judgment, votes their conscience, and then however it works around, we have to parliamentarily find a way that we have unanimity, unless somebody or anybody can say, I refuse. And nobody, I don't think, in the board is gonna refuse it. I really don't.
It's a tough situation. I think that one data that we saw was that a lot of the new income taxes, I think it was in Southwest Ohio, failed.
Every one of them in Ohio failed except poor old Mount Healthy.
So, I don't know, I'm worried about what do we best present that can pass? So,
Yeah,
4 months ago, we might have been able to
understand that.
sell it.
Yeah.
But your point of equity is correct.
your
I
point of
agree.
equity
That's
And that's
the
where I'm gonna
greatest number.
stand.
And that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. And it's okay. And make that point. And then we'll unfortunately have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's with any decision, right?
Sure.
With any
Sure.
votes that we have. So, obviously, the majority vote will carry, but I think is, you know,
And after a
Totally okay.
majority vote, then the whole board has to agree with that majority vote. That's protocol.
yeah, the majority vote carries, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone has to work towards that majority. So I think everybody will. I think everybody
It was a
will.
nice, short, brief meeting.
I never said it was gonna be short. Mike said it was gonna be short. It was that transportation lady that did it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, you want to? Did we have anybody that wanted to speak?
They all left.
That's the idea, folks. Yes, we are adjourned.